Good morning. Welcome to today's New York City Council hearing for the Committee on Disabilities. Please silence all self-electronic devices. Moving forward, no one is to approach the stage. If you have any questions, please reach out to the Sergeant at Arms, Chair Hanif. We are ready to begin.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Councilmember Shahana Hanif, Chair of the Committee on Disabilities. Thank you for your patience this morning. Apologies for being late. I'm in my mid-30s, a brown woman, wear black glasses, and I have wavy, medium-sized hair. Today, I am wearing a white shawl, white shirt, black blazer, and I'm seated behind a dais. Welcome to our oversight hearing on equal economic opportunity for New Yorkers with disabilities. Nearly 1 in 6 New York City residents has a disability. Of those who are working age, only 41% are employed, compared to 81% of non-disabled New Yorkers. That gap is not a product of individual limitation. It is the product of structural barriers that we have allowed to persist. Employer discrimination, inaccessible workplaces, a benefit system that can punish people for working, and a workforce infrastructure that was not built with people with significant disabilities in mind. The city has made commitments. In 2023, the Adams administration announced the plan to advance career success for people with disabilities, with the goal of connecting 2,500 New Yorkers with disabilities to employment by July 2026. More than $10 million in city funds has been committed. By the end of last year, nearly 1,700 individuals had been connected to employment, and 2 months remain. These placements are important. Every one of them represents a New Yorker who cleared real barriers to get to work, and the agencies and mayoral offices in this room deserve credit for that. The Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities New York City at Work program has earned international recognition, including the Zero Project Award for Innovative Policies in Employment, and its trainers have lived this. At the city's Workforce One Career Centers, the Department of Small Business Services Scion team has established a baseline for inclusive delivery that did not exist before. The Office of Talent and Workforce Development's Center for Workplace Accessibility and Inclusion launched the city's first of its kind digital accessibility training in partnership with Microsoft, equipping city employees to create content that works for everyone. And last month, the New York City Talent and the Mayor's Office for Economic Opportunity, alongside MOPED and SBS, did something this city has never done before. They awarded $7.5 million for employment programs that will be co-designed by New Yorkers with disabilities themselves, not for them, with them. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act, signed into law last July, will reduce federal Medicaid spending by more than $1 trillion over 10 years. The services that allow people with significant disabilities to live independently, home health aides, personal care services, day programs, are among the first things states cut when federal revenues contract. Without those services, employment is not a realistic goal. The city's workforce programs are downstream of that infrastructure. Their effectiveness depends on it. At the same time, the Social Security Administration has lost more than 7,500 employees since January of last year. Disability insurance appeal backlogs have grown by more than 73,000 cases in a single year. Average processing times for disability claims can exceed 200 days. For a New Yorker trying to decide whether they can enter the workforce without losing their benefits, that uncertainty is not a minor inconvenience. It is a reason not to try. Last week, the City Comptroller's Office hosted a Disability Justice Roundtable and committed to publishing an annual economic snapshot on disability employment in the city. And last December, the Comptroller's Office reported that 725,000 New York City Medicaid enrollees stand to lose coverage through new federal work reporting and recertification requirements, and that 230,000 more New York City residents will lose no-cost essential plan coverage as early as July 1st of this year. These are not abstract federal policy questions. So today we are asking straightforward questions. Is the city's current investment commensurate with the scale of need? Are the city's programs reaching New Yorkers with intellectual, developmental, and psychiatric disabilities, or primarily those who are already closest to employment ready? As federal benefits become less reliable and harder to access, is the city equipped to help its own program participants navigate that uncertainty and stay in the workforce? And what is the administration's plan for supporting equal economic opportunity for New Yorkers with disabilities after July 2026? Employment is not a privilege. For New Yorkers with disabilities, it is a civil rights issue, one that touches housing, healthcare, food security, and the ability to participate fully in civic life. We will not get this right by treating it as a workforce development problem alone. We have to be honest about the structural barriers that remain, the federal threats that are bearing down on us, the gap between what is being promised and what has been delivered. Thank you to the administration for being here today, as well as the disability advocates, service providers, and members of the public who have traveled to testify or submitted written testimony. Your presence here is an act of self-advocacy, and we do not take it for granted. Thank you to all the staff who made today's hearing possible, including Disabilities Committee staff, Senior Legislative Counsel Sarah Sucher, and Senior Legislative Policy Analyst Chloe Rivera. I also want to recognize any council members who are here. Anybody on the Zoom? No, okay. All right, they're missing out on a great hearing. And now I will pass the mic to committee counsel to administer the oath to members of the administration prior to their testimony.
Will you please raise your right hand and respond verbally with "I do"? Do you affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth before these committee members, and to respond honestly to council member questions? Thank you. You may begin your testimony when ready.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay, good. Good morning, Chair Hanif.
You might need to bring it a little closer.
Okay.
I think
I figured. Is this better? Yeah, okay. Good morning, Chair Hanif, and members of the committee. Will join hopefully later. And to the audience as well. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Nycc Agarwal, the Commissioner of the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities. I have short black hair and brown skin. I'm wearing a navy top and slacks. I have aphasia, and I have my handy cane somewhere around me. MOPED, or MOPD's mission is to ensure that New York City is accessible and inclusive for the more than 1 million New Yorkers with disabilities who live and work in this city. We do direct services, community engagement, strategic communication, and policymaking at the local, state, national, and international level for both public and private stakeholders. And employment, for people with disabilities is vital. First, I will walk through the setting of the scene with some numbers. In employment for New York City, just 40% of New Yorkers with disabilities of working age are employed, compared to 73% of city overall working age population. And for those who are in the labor force, the employment rate is nearly double, 13% for people with disabilities compared to 7% citywide. We also know that on average, people with disabilities may spend approximately 20% of their income on disability-related expenses, causing a strain to their incomes. I agree on that. Furthermore, people with disabilities grapple with a tight housing market, inflation costs on food and other necessities, transportation barriers, healthcare coverage considerations, and other everyday affordable matters. The bottom line is people with disabilities are feeling the burden of affordability issues, oftentimes more exacerbated rates than compared to other New Yorkers. Core focus of our work is about jobs with people with disabilities, the dignity of their work, the independence that it could provide, and the ability to build a life in the city that we all love. For example, Moped's signature job initiative, NYC at Work, has been active for about a decade. And it provides a continuum of individual services to both job seekers and job employers. For job seekers, we offer career advice, resume and interview preparation, guidance on disclosure and reasonable accommodations, retention services, and supports for those who applied to city government. On the employer side, we provide recruitment support, pre-screening candidate referrals, and personalized hiring events, among other things. To date, our program has helped 800 New Yorkers with disabilities secure employment, including a significant number of people who did 55A programs, a pathway for people with disabilities to secure employment with the city. And since July 2023, in conjunction with our sister agencies, we completed more than 3,000 people with disabilities have secured employment. Nearly 150 were from New York City at Work. While Moped has been at the forefront of this work, we cannot do it without the partnerships with our city agencies and our colleagues who are also committed to this effort, and they are all seated at the dais today. Finally, I want to share a success story so that we can all put this in perspective. When asked what one of our colleagues liked about his job, he said, "My work feels meaningful." He went on to provide advice to other job seekers, saying, "Be patient, the right opportunity will come your way." This client now works on health and safety issues at DCAS. He has a background in project analytics and has a degree background in transportation-related issues. He came to one of our job fairs in 2024 and provided through a whole year of period after a soft job possibility translated into a tangible employment. He was also able to use the 55A program as a pathway to employment with the city. He has a learning disability, and one of his goals is to build his confidence in the workplace. To that end, one of our career advisors has continued to work with this client while he still works in DCAS. They are debriefing about everyday issues that the client faces, ways to build his confidence in his unit, and shape his ongoing career trajectory. That ongoing support for our career advisors continues for a year beyond the employment, and our advisor and the client have been talking consistently for 8 months now. This is just one story of a job seeker that has been touched by working with at-job program, and showing the dedication of our staff and the powerful story of how patience, support, connection, and follow-up can impact all New Yorkers, including New Yorkers with disabilities. Our goal, working together and fighting to extend opportunities for people with disabilities, just highlighted above here. This matters to everyone, and thank you very much for the opportunity to testify today, and I am happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Good morning. Good morning, Chair Hanif, and any members that do join us at this hearing. My name is Haris Khan, Chief of Staff at the New York City Department of Small Business Services. I'm pleased to join today's hearing with Commissioner Agarwal from the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities, Executive Director Lipari from the Office of Talent and Workforce Development, and Assistant Commissioner Autar from the Department of Citywide Administrative Services. Per the City Controller's 2024 report, New York City working age adults with disabilities face an employment rate of just 41% compared to 81% for those without disabilities, a gap that carries real consequences for economic security and quality of life. At SBS, doing our part to close that gap is a priority. We're committed to delivering economic opportunity for all New Yorkers, and today I want to report on the steps we're taking to better serve New Yorkers with disabilities. Over the past several years, SBS has worked to make our Workforce One career centers more accessible and effective for job seekers with disabilities. Through the state-funded New York Systems Change and Inclusive Opportunities Network program, or SION, we've expanded employee trainings, hosted targeted recruitment events, and improved accessibility across our centers. In October last year, to mark National Disability Employment Awareness Month, we hosted 3 resource fairs that connected more than 180 job seekers to community resources, benefits counseling, and job placement support. This month, we're continuing that momentum with 2 additional events, one tomorrow in Jamaica, Queens, another on May 12th in Staten Island. Across all of our Workforce One career centers, we've placed more than 1,200 New Yorkers with disabilities into jobs since 2024, and more than 150 Workforce One center staff members have received training and support from our disability resource coordinators, as well as disability etiquette awareness training from our colleagues at MOPD. This ensures that when a New Yorker with disability walks through any of our doors, they're met by staff who are prepared to serve them with competence and respect. Our DRCs also work directly with job seekers to help them navigate disability benefits, connect them to independent living centers, and refer them to DCWP financial counselors that are co-located in our 5 borough-based hub centers. Additionally, we've embedded MOPD's NYC at Work program within our downtown Brooklyn Workforce One Center at 9 Bond Street, deepening the range of direct service available to New Yorkers with disabilities at that location. Looking ahead, SBS is pleased to share that in partnership with MOPD, NYC Talent, NYC Opportunity, the city announced awards for an innovative co-designed pilot program on April 1st of 2026. This initiative invests $7.5 million over the next 4 years to support providers in designing and implementing accessible workforce programs with people with disabilities at the table as collaborators in program design and not just recipients of services. SBS is proud to contribute contract and program management support to this effort. Decisions about vendor selection, training models, and program direction are also informed by NYC Opportunity as the funder, NYC Talent as the citywide coordinating entity on workforce development, and MOPD as the citywide subject matter expert on disability. Together, we expect this initiative will generate meaningful learnings for this field over the next 4 years. We thank Council for the opportunity to testify today and welcome any questions.
You're supporting a bill, Intro 303, and I asked that, as the disability chair, do not support this bill. You know
You can testify, and I'd love to hear this. So are you okay to wait to be able to testify?
We've been trying to reach you, regarding this, and we have reached a wall. It seems like the city council is hell bent on passing this bill. That it's going to ace tomorrow, and it's probably going to be voted on the 14th. And no one seems to understand that this bill does not do what it is supposed to.
I'd love to hear this in full, and I'd love for you to stay here. So let's continue this during the testimony section.
I remember being with her in the round tables at MOPD years ago. And I was glad that you were chosen as the disability chair. But you being on this bill, wow, people with
If I'd love to continue this, and I don't want to get you out of the room. So please respect just the decorum right now, so that we can have this conversation during the testimony section of this hearing. I do not want to get you out of the room.
people with disabilities to your office that we get ignored, we have no choice but to do things like this.
I understand that. Thank you. Okay, so starting with the plan to advance career success for people with disabilities, I'd like to ask a few questions. What is the Mamdani administration's assessment of the inherited plan? And what is working, what is not, and what, if anything, is going to change?
Good morning. My name is Doug LaPere. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of Talent and Workforce Development, or NYC Talent for short. I'm a white male with brown hair, a beard, and wearing a blue suit and a white shirt and a reddish pinkish tie. We are absolutely committed to making sure that there is opportunity for all New Yorkers to be connected to employment pathways and have our employers here in the city of New York have access to the talent. And that talent includes people with disabilities. And so it is core to the work of our office at NYC Talent to make sure that people with disabilities are connected to job opportunities.
Is that specifically the initiative that was launched in the previous administration? What does that have to do with, is that NYC Talents?
So the Center for Workplace Accessibility and Inclusion was established in 2023 as part of this plan. That was established within our office, which is important as we are a centralized office who helps coordinate the system, has a citywide purview in terms of working with all the partners both internal and external. And so the goal of connecting 2,500 New Yorkers was set then and by July 2026, and we are proud that already we've met and surpassed this goal, connecting more than 3,800 people with disabilities to jobs as of the end of 2025.
And is there anything that you want to share in terms of the feedback around what's working? It seems like what you all are doing is working if you've surpassed the 2,500 number.
Yeah, we're proud of the work and proud of the partnership that is reflected here and sitting at this table. And so we're always looking to evaluate the types of programming that is successful and the lessons learned, and we continue to do that. We are also excited about the co-design RFP process that Chief of Staff Khan testified about. That was also announced as part of that plan, and that work is just beginning now. And so we expect that the outcomes from that will be really important for helping connect job seekers to job seekers with disabilities to jobs, and we'll have a lot of lessons learned to bring into future programming as well.
I'd like to recognize Councilmember Kavan, who has joined us. So the plan encompasses 9 distinct programs administered across at least 5 city agencies. How is accountability structured across agencies when no single agency owns the full portfolio?
Yeah, so part of what we do at NYC Talent is work across the entire system, and each of the programs are different, right? Each agency has different types of programs with different types of scope and different types of goals associated with it. And so in terms of looking across the system, we work with SBS and their Workforce One Career Centers of how they're connecting people with disabilities, MOPD's NYC at Work program, DYCD, DSS for their We Care program, and then our at NYC Talent, we have our Partnership for Inclusive Internships. And so each of them are structured differently, but we work across collecting information from each of them to each of the agencies to count up towards our 3,800 job placements.
And while each of them are structured differently, is that a choice the agency
I just wanted
develops?
to,
Yeah. go ahead.
add a little as well. So for Moped's perspective, it's great if other agencies contribute their stuff on employment, on housing, etc. It's like we want to work together, and that's what we do. So, for example, we partnered with Quai, as it's referred to share resources and opportunities to reduce employment, reduce barriers to employment for people of disabilities. So, for example, last year we did a co-hosting event on community-based organizations and vendors on issues on employment for people with disabilities. That was done in recognition of the 35th anniversary of the signature of the ADA. And we highlighted an individual story shared. And we had a panel moderated by Moped that focused on a city employee who went through the PII internship process and was connected to a permanent 55A job. So that's like PII, 55A, we were coordinating it. So we're all working together on that to give an example.
So just to get some more clarity on this, this currently is being assessed by New York City Talent. Describe to me how the multiple offices are actually working together outside of one of the resource fairs or events.
Yeah, so we work together with all three of these agencies across a variety of programming, specifically tied to the plan in terms of tracking towards the goal. Like I said, the Workforce One centers have a different model of operating than the Partnership for Inclusive Internships. And so we work regularly to help support to make sure that our Center for Workplace Accessibility and Inclusion can help serve as that central coordinating body in terms of advocating for the system, making sure that we're bringing the stakeholders together. We have a strong advisory council that we work across the both internal and external partners to make sure
Who makes that up?
I don't have an exact list of all of the organizations, but there's some state entities. There are private entities like the Frick Collection, EY, Microsoft, and that is a body that we convene to share lessons learned. We're working on, in partnership with that council, of creating a employer toolkit that will be for employers, nonprofits, job seekers, of how to make sure that workplaces are more accessible and have reducing barriers for people with disabilities and connecting to jobs.
And so associated with this plan, how many full-time employees are across all agencies dedicated to its implementation?
Across all of the agencies, so I can speak to, the Center for Workplace Accessibility and Inclusion. We have 2 dedicated staff, though all of our work across our entire office, we make sure that our Quai team is feeding into the broader work of our office to make sure that we are always prioritizing people with disabilities in the work and mindful of that. I can't speak for the staffing models at the other agencies, but I'm happy to pass the mic to let them speak to it.
Hi, I'm Abby Meyerhoff, Director of Programs for NYC at Work at MOPD. I'm a white woman with brown hair pulled back, a gray jacket, and blue shirt, and I can respond for the NYC at Work program. We have 6 full-time staff that support employment for New Yorkers with disabilities.
But that's separate from the specific plan initiative that has the concrete goals of 2,500.
Our team connects job seekers with disabilities to employment, and that counts towards the 2,500 goal.
And then in terms of the city agencies who are working alongside you, do they have separate staff?
Yes.
So we don't have staff dedicated just on this plan. We operate a citywide system. It's mostly federal. It's overwhelmingly federally funded, and it's 17 physical centers all over the 5 boroughs. And it's that system that has served and connected over 1,200 New Yorkers with disabilities and placed them into jobs. And that's the number that ladders up to the 3,800 number at the end of the last calendar year.
Understood.
And I do want to say,
yeah.
Chair, on that work itself, I think you brought up a question of tracking and accountability. We take this work incredibly seriously. I wanted to also report out that in this first 6 months period of FY26, which is the last kind of half of last year, we served over 2,600 New Yorkers with disability. That reflects over 2/3 of the number of the annual served in FY25. So we're already definitely way on track to surpass the last fiscal year's numbers in this fiscal year. And so we care about this work. We're tracking it internally, and then obviously our partners and City Hall, and Executive Director Lipari and his team, they have a quarterly update across all of our partner agencies to ensure City Hall on a quarterly basis is looking at these numbers and making sure we're meeting the milestones as they approach.
The funding commitment runs through FY29. What will happen to these programs after?
So because of the variety of programs and variety of different city agencies, like Chief of Staff Khan mentioned, like the Workforce One centers are federally funded, and so like that's one funding source. Our DYCD partners also leverage federal funding, but we have HRA, and so there's different funding sources, and so I can't speak to each one of those. But we are excited about the co-design RFP, which is just launching, and that we will look to see from that initiative, which again, this work that we've done to date is we are very proud of, but we're very excited about the work ahead as well, which is part of this investment, right? This work is still in progress, and so we're always continuing to look to see, as we do this work across the system, what is working and how we can make sure that we are maximizing the investments across the city.
And then Haris, you mentioned the data tracking that's happening. Are you all able to share publicly about the placement rates, the retention rates, wage levels at placements, and advancement over time?
So I understand all of the agencies have different levels of data collection and tracking for each of their, because these are distinct programs that are all laddering up to the milestone goal. So to the extent that we have data that tracks with what you're looking for, we'd love to share that. I think we definitely have the wage level number that we would be able to provide. We don't track retention, other than the fact that job placements are happening, and then we have an employer that voluntarily lets us know that they've made the job placement, or we do a later step W-4 match to confirm that a job placement has been made.
So each agency has their own record-keeping system, and it's not a standardized model in terms of like we're keeping track of the wages or where they've been played, like what's standardized?
Yeah, so the workforce system here in the city is incredibly robust, but it's incredibly large, right? There's depending on the count, over 150 different programs across 30 different city agencies. And, the workforce programming is not one type of thing, right? And just like people with disabilities are not a monolith, the programming is not as well. And so there are some programming that city agencies have that is dedicated specifically towards connecting people with disabilities, but there's a lot of other workforce programming that is not discretely geared towards that. However, people with disabilities are connected through that programming. And so we do our best to try to track, for purposes of counting towards this 3,800 number, programming that is serving people with disabilities, but as well as like the Workforce One centers, for example, are centers that anyone can walk into. And so the way that the data is tracked across the various agencies does vary depending on the particular agency, but also depending on the particular type of programming that might be and how dedicated it is for one particular population or another.
Yeah, no, I get that the workforce sector is not a monolith, but I think it is. It does cause me some tension that we don't have something that's more standardized to understand when a program like this exists, and because it needs to exist. We want to make sure that people with disabilities are in all fields of work, not knowing if there's real retention. That
I can speak to that. So for the NYC at Work program, through the process of embedding and integrating into the Workforce One Center in Brooklyn, we've spent a considerable amount of time transitioning our database tracking system to utilize SBS's WorkSource One system. So at this time, the NYC at Work program and the Workforce One centers are using the same system, and we're working really closely with SBS to make sure that any data points that we've utilized and needed and had to track or wanted to understand better are also being addressed within the WorkSource One system. And additionally, NYC at Work tracks retention, and that is part of our both data collection and part of the service delivery, which Commissioner Agarwal mentioned in her initial testimony.
and is that data that you can share with us publicly?
Yes.
So on how much money the city is investing across the 6 fiscal years is $1.7 million. What's the cost per placement thus far?
So the cost for placement, based on public available data, this falls well within the range of costs per placement for workforce development programs in New York City. And due to the nature of people with disabilities and the variety of systemic barriers to employment, many job seekers benefit for more comprehensive, ongoing services. That is a success in incremental ways to move it forward, and which will better reflect in our data as we move forward.
The cost per placement,
Yes.
which is something you don't have right now. Just want to make sure.
No, we have data, we have research related to that.
And then do you know how that compares to benchmarks for comparable workforce programs?
Yeah, so similar to what I was mentioning before, workforce programming generally will vary quite a bit in terms of cost per placement depending on the type of work, and particularly when there are programming that is targeted towards people with particular barriers to employment. There's often a lot of supportive services and wraparound supports, which may increase the cost per placement or tied to any particular program. So some programs are more costly per person because the level of service is different and the type of services needed. And so again,
are you able to share maybe an example of what one cost could look like, and if it?
So some programming, and I'll let her speak to, like, the Workforce One centers operate in a very different way in terms of the scale and scope of what the particular cost per placement or level of service may be for one particular individual. But our partnership for inclusive internship program, for example, that is a programming where we are actually using an innovative funding model where we at Talent are funding for the staff of the nonprofit who supports this work, but the wages paid are actually through state entities. So that's one example where our investment is a portion of the actual total investment into the programming. And so that's just one example where there's a unique model. And so in terms of like X amount of dollars per individuals, it varies depending on the type of services.
So and similar to what Executive Director Lapari mentioned, each of these workforce programs are incredibly different. So some are specifically tailored for the population of New Yorkers with disabilities, such as the At Work program or We Care and other programs in the system. Our Workforce One system is open to all. It's federally funded. It requires that any New Yorker get access to it. So we have done a cost per placement analysis for that system. Again, it's for all New Yorkers, and so it's not really segmented for target population, but that number is $1,314 is roughly what it costs us to make one job placement at our workforce.
Why isn't
One.
that disaggregated by disabilities?
So it's an
for
analysis of
everyone, but-
so our work, right, and the federal funding stream requires that funding stream and the services are accessible to all. So when we did the cost per placement analysis, our mandate was citywide workforce systems, the general adult population. How are we making these connections, and what is it costing us? That's the lens with which we conducted that analysis, which led to the 1,314 number. And just for reference, that means for every $6.94 invested into the system, we're seeing a return of roughly 21% annually. So the ROI is 21%. For every dollar invested into the adult workforce system, the city is capturing 21% on the net economic benefit of having more people in the workforce.
I mean, that's great, but it still doesn't give a picture of the population that I think we're, as a committee, most interested in. And I think that the city should have clear analysis as to how much investment is going towards getting anyone with disabilities looking for work placed.
I also wanted to share the retention rate. So the proportion of participants engaging retention support has increased from 25% to 65%. So that's over the last 3 years. As the team has developed more structure and robust engagement strategies, and more job seekers have responded to our outreach. So that is like an important data point that we have improved year after year, and we're hoping to do some more. And this approximately 65% of participants remains employers at the 12-month mark. So that's a very big deal, and especially given the recent climate, which is really hard for any job seeker, it's been a success story from our perspective.
I think that's fantastic. And do you credit that to Moped's work, or what would you say is allowing for greater retention?
I mean, I will say I'm very much proud of the incredible staff doing at work programs, and I think they are fantastic. So I would say that's what I feel for our perspective we had.
And how many staff are working specifically on the at work program?
6 people.
And has that changed from previous fiscal years?
It's varied a little bit over the last several years, but we've generally hovered around 6. But the structure of the team has changed, particularly over the last 2 years. Among the 6 staff, 3 of them are working out of the Workforce One and delivering those direct services. The other staff are serving in other functions on the team.
Got it. And then on NYC at Work, how many placements was NYC at Work achieving annually prior to the city funding?
So when NYC at Work was first established, the program was entirely privately funded, and that was about almost 10 years ago. And after the initial 3 years of our pilot, we transitioned to being funded by the city. In the earlier years of the program, we had a little bit higher placement rate than we've had over the last several years. And I think that is largely due to some is the way that our staff has transitioned and adapting to the change of working in the workforce one. That's something that really was an opportunity for us to undergo some significant changes, which are now yielding more results. Over the last few years, we've had a uptick in employment over the last few years since we've been in the workforce one. And I think that some of that change has also been, as the commissioner mentioned, a result of the economy.
So prior to the city funding, when there was private funding, you're saying that placements were a little bit higher.
A little bit higher, I would say, before the pandemic, and that coincided with the period of time when we were primarily privately funded. And then as we shifted into being funded through city tax dollars, we also had the pandemic. We were working fully remotely, and over the last almost 3 years, we've transitioned into our new structure, working in the workforce one and delivering in-person services. And over that period of time, the hires have increased again.
And I would add that this was the first time since COVID that we do in-person process, and that's been a very big deal. And like the data shares that between July 2023 to June 2025, we have 168 people with disabilities received services and helped 99 individuals that got employment. So that's and then we did workshops and a range of other things, but we're increasing that as we recognize ways that we can identify our work and ways that it can work well to people with disabilities.
And for the 6 staffers who support the NYC at Work, what are their titles and functions? And is the administration's view that current staffing levels are sufficient to meet the program demand?
I can respond to the first part of that question. So I'm the director of programs, and we have a community engagement manager who largely oversees our public sector employment partners, so works very closely with DCAS and other city agencies. We have a business engagement coordinator who works more with our private sector employer partners. We have a manager of career services who oversees a team of 2 additional career advisors. And among the 3 of them, they work at the Workforce One Center, providing service delivery, and then also supporting all of the work that SBS has been doing to increase accessibility and inclusion within that center more broadly.
And related to employment numbers, we are working with City Hall and OMB on general matters, and that includes at work.
That's good to know. Could you share what NYC at Work's current budget for the fiscal year is, and what share of that budget is city funded versus funded through other sources such as grants, state dollars, if any?
Yeah, so our so in 2024 and 2025, it was $543.82, and in the next year, 2026 and 2027, it'll be $584 and some change, and it's all by city tax levy dollars. It's not
So no private funding. Okay. What accommodations or supports are available for participants who, because of the nature of their disability, cannot engage effectively with a self-directed model, which is my understanding of NYC at Work?
So yes, our program is primarily self-driven and self-directed. We work really closely with our partners at the state, so that's Access VR and the New York State Commission for the Blind, as well as over 80 plus provider and community-based organizations that provide additional support that is intended to supplement the work that our team provides. And it's part of our engagement of job seekers to include those other service providers so that we're able to work in partnership to support that individual at this point.
Could you, again, just clarify how you all are engaging with folks who may not be able to use the current model?
Sure. So I would say there's two options. One is when an individual comes to us, if they may face a challenge or difficulty with utilizing the program as it's structured now. If they're already working with another provider, we'll include that provider in that engagement, or help connect them to another provider and continue that engagement. In a situation where the individual may not demonstrate the job readiness level that our program entails at this point, then we would work to, again, connect them to somebody who would be able to provide them with more robust or comprehensive services to supplement our work. Depending on that individual, they may then come back to the NYC at Work program and kind of continue that partnership. It may just, it depends a little bit on the person.
And could you just share one more time how many participants are in the NYC at Work program?
Sure. So I would say on average, we have around 200 individuals who are engaged in an ongoing way. So they will maintain communication with their career advisor until they're connected to employment, and then through that year after. And then we have individuals who may start engagement and then may not continue it. And there may be individuals who will come to us for one specific opportunity. When they get hired, then they kind of move out. And I would say, like, on average, we're engaging with 700-800 plus individuals per year.
And what proportion of these participants are accessing retention support?
So among the individuals who have been hired at this point, I would say probably around 60% have been utilizing the retention support over the last year, which, as the commissioner mentioned, has increased over the last few years.
And then in a 12-month period, what is the retention rate for program placement?
About 65%.
And then you mentioned career advisors.
Yes.
How many career advisors?
So we have two individuals who are career advisors, and then we have a manager of career services who also serves as a career advisor in addition to her managerial functions.
And has that model been sufficient to ensure that all folks who are part of the program have the support they need?
I think that we, want to continue the conversation with OMB and other parties to figure out how we can continue to support our job seekers.
But we would love if we could have another Workforce One and expanded, but we'll talk to OMB and City Hall, as Abby mentioned.
Are the career advisors at the Workforce One centers?
Yes. So they currently work out of the Workforce One Center in downtown Brooklyn. So they provide services in person. But since we are only in one location at this time, they also continue to provide additional services either by phone or virtually.
Got it. And do folks have to make appointments to communicate with them? What's the process?
So, generally speaking, our preference is for individuals to set appointments, but the Workforce One is in open center. And so if someone comes in who does not have an appointment, one of the career advisors will meet with them then.
And how quickly is a career advisor able to see someone?
On site?
On site or on phone? How is that?
So on site, if when an individual comes into the center, we will we'll do our best to make sure that that person is seen that day for at least an assessment of what they're looking for and an understanding of their career goals. For an individual who reaches out to us virtually, it might take several weeks to have that screening appointment due to the volume of individuals.
And can you walk me through maybe an example of what an interaction could look like what kind of career support someone might be looking for from a career advisor, and what the career advisor would share as a resource?
Yeah, absolutely. So generally the first conversations are around what that individual's goals are and what kind of work they're looking for, what their job search process is already like, what their experience is in, what their education is. Usually the first comprehensive engagement is around a particular job application. So whether it's a position that we've made available to our job seekers or from a position that that person may have found on their own, the career advisor will first help assess that that individual meets the qualifications for the position. And then if and when they do, they'll work with that job seeker to make sure that their application materials really demonstrate the strength of their candidacy. So tailoring it for the specific job, making sure the cover letter is clear and demonstrates their interest in the company, all the things that everyone, really works on when they're applying for jobs. And then after the application is submitted, the career advisors will facilitate a mock interview. And generally, as people continue to be successful in those, they'll have multiple. We have actually somebody who just completed her 6th mock interview for the same position. So we're expecting that the offer is coming soon. Once someone receives an offer, or even throughout the interview process, the career advisor may provide guidance on navigating that process. It may also include navigating a reasonable accommodation request, so that individual will make sure that they have that if it's in an interview or when they're starting the job. In the case particularly with city government work, but really with a lot of employers, there's also additional assistance with available for completing some of those online application packages. For city government, there's a lot of information that you need to provide, and many other of our employer partners require something similar. So, ensuring that individuals are able to complete that in a timely way. And then assisting with other components of onboarding. So again, in the case of city government, if it is a 55A eligible position, that individual will need to be enrolled in either Access VR or the New York State Commission for the Blind. So we make sure that that is something that person is able to set up. Walking them through those first few days, making sure that they get started and have, a really fantastic couple of days. And then, checking in and engaging intermittently through that first year. And the frequency does depend a little bit on the job seeker's interest level. And sometimes if there's challenges, we may support them more comprehensively. There are oftentimes that we'll engage with the employer at a similar manner as well. And that will usually, hopefully take them through that first year. Sometimes somebody will be ready for a promotion, and we'll, support them through that process in that first year as well.
And are you all keeping track of career advancements and promotions?
And I want to invite you to join me and going to Workforce One, and you can see in person how it's going, and tell your constituents to go to the At Work if they're looking for job placements. I just wanted to mention that.
Absolutely. And so how is the city doing outreach to make sure that New Yorkers know?
So I can respond on behalf of the NYC at Work program, but I think our partners at DCAS and SBS can respond as well. We do our best to respond, yes, every time we're invited to any community engagement event. We do a lot of community outreach. We respond to a lot of constituent calls and just people who reach out to our office because they're looking for employment but don't realize that our program is available. We work with all of the provider agencies and community organizations to provide information sessions for all of their participants as well. We've been working really closely, in particular over the last 6 months or so, with the New York Public Library and the Brooklyn Public Library in particular, to make sure that both their patrons with disabilities are aware of our program, and also providing support for their career services staff to supplement some of the work that we're doing in terms of some direct service as well.
And is that specifically the Workforce One centers or the At Work program?
So speaking for the NYC at Work program, when we are promoting our program, we also include information about the Workforce One, because when somebody wants to come see us in person, they'll come to the Workforce One. And as part of the enrollment process, every individual will need to come to the center once just to complete the enrollment for participation. And that's part of how we're able to share data.
They will
as
need
we
to come
mentioned
to
earlier.
the center once, as in physically?
Yes, that's part of the enrollment process for Workforce One.
Why is that?
I think that's how the Workforce One enrollment process works. And so, as part of embedding and integrating into that center, we're, trying to take steps to avoid confusion and duplication of intake and things like that. And so we've been taking steps to align with their enrollment process at the Workforce One Center.
Could you speak more on the piece about needing to be physically present?
So we do provide services virtually as well on the actual enrollment requirements. We can follow up. The funding stream is federally funded, so there's significant federal requirements on how we're collecting data, what is being asked, how we're storing data, and then reporting. We have levels of oversight with the federal government, with the state government, and then we also coordinate with our city agencies that oversee some of this work.
And have you heard from New Yorkers about experiencing hardship because they were unable to physically be present at a center? And how did they know they could go ahead and pursue a virtual?
Yeah, so I'm getting my senses. Our services are also, if you can't physically access our services, you're able to receive them virtually, and that's what we did during COVID. When for a 2-year period of time, we weren't requiring New Yorkers to enter the Workforce One Center physically, but we'll follow up with our teams to understand what might be the concern that has led to this kind of confusion on what the requirements are. So we'll follow up, but my sense is all of our services can be virtually accessed as well. During COVID, they were. I think we've gone back to a time when we are now we want New Yorkers to also physically enter our centers. Our locations are also located all 5 boroughs. We have 17 centers. So if you're not necessarily required to visit the Brooklyn Center if you're a New Yorker with disability, the Brooklyn Center is our pilot program where we've got this incredible integration between MOPD's At Work team and the SBS team. And the lessons that we're learning here, alongside the work we're doing with Scion, the systems change initiative, we're implementing across the network. So now all of our center staff, 151, are trained on disability etiquette. They're also
151
trained
across the 17.
Across the 17 centers are trained. They were trained in 2024. They were trained again in February of this year. So there's ongoing coordination there. We have a team of 2 disability resource coordinators. So they're also having office hours at these centers to provide so it's not just one and done training of our center staff and then we're done for 2 years. We've got office hours with disability resource coordinators on staff that are going into these centers and reminding them of the resources that exist, teaching them about the warm handoffs that they could make for referrals to other benefit providers. And so there's a whole loop of feedback loop that's informing the work, and every year we're intending to do better. And that's, I think, demonstrated by the fact that already we've surpassed 2/3 of the annual goal this fiscal year in the first 6 months.
And then just broadly on outreach about the Workforce One centers, what is the city doing?
So because it's a 17 center network, we're in local communities all over the 5 boroughs. Our center staff themselves will go out to local communities, attend community board meetings, go to events organized by local nonprofits. Whenever invitations come in, we're intending to be there. We also have a Jobs NYC team that focuses particularly on neighborhoods with really persistent levels of unemployment. And for those neighborhoods, we're also doing localized hiring halls in those communities. And again, those are also our disability service resource coordinators have actually trained our Jobs NYC team that's been organizing these hiring halls to ensure that when we plan out these hiring halls, we're mindful of how we're setting up the tables and chairs, what the entrance and exit and egress looks like, and ensuring it's physically accessible to New Yorkers.
And just to clarify, 17 centers, not 18.
17 centers, 1 floating center where we're kind of in the community. We're using the public library. Sometimes we're using another facility in the neighborhood. But yes, 18 centers, 17 physical.
So aside from the what seems like neighborhood outreach and providers reaching out for information on the Workforce One centers, is there anything more citywide that has been developed to express to New Yorkers that this is available?
We've done marketing campaigns depending on, so we usually have Link NYC ads and other marketing campaigns directed in neighborhoods that are facing persistent levels of unemployment. So when you're in downtown Manhattan around City Hall, you don't see tons of those ads, but when you're in neighborhoods with high need, you're seeing some of those ads on Link NYC. You're seeing some of them on bus shelters when we have the budget for marketing, and when we're not under budget constraints.
And what do you see as an effective way to do outreach?
It's really been an all of the above approach, but particularly this neighborhood-based approach of going deep into communities, not having people come to a particular location to get services, but also bring services into local communities has really worked for SBS. And the Jobs NYC works just speaks for itself, where we're organizing roughly 2 to 3 large-scale hiring events in local communities every month. We're promoting it widely. They're always packed out. We've got employers, roughly a dozen employers for each of these events that are doing on-site job interviews and connections. We've also partnered with city agencies, so DCAS and other agencies are also able to participate in these hiring events. And we also have a mobile van that we call Jobsy, and it's our nickname for this van. And we bring that van out to local communities. When we don't do a full-scale event, we'll table with that van, and it serves as a nice billboard and also has computer inside. So if you're providing a resume edit to a constituent that needs help and we have center staff available, they can walk into the van and help do some of that work.
So
with a New Yorker.
the mobile Jobsy, is that by appointment? How are we getting that to different parts of the city? Because I'm thinking about the IDNYC van, which has
They
been
have a
difficult.
nicer van. They have a
They
nicer
do have a
van.
great van.
We have a
but
we have
tough
a
to bring into the neighborhood.
I'm actually very biased. I mean, I got to know Commissioner Agarwal through her incredible leadership of setting up IDNYC and the incredible benefit it is to New Yorkers, all New Yorkers, but immigrant New Yorkers. And so nothing can ever compete with her work on IDNYC and now the IDNYC and their van. But our humble van also does go out into communities. We do appointments sometimes, so we'll partner with the local organization if they want to do a full-blown event where we're marketing it ahead of time and we have scheduled slots for appointments, then we'll do it that way. If we can't do it that way because the event is a large community festival and not a structured event, we'll still table and we'll have the staff available to do one-on-one services, even if it's not by appointment. So it really varies depending on
How are you deciding where Jobsy is?
if we have the staff capacity, we'll go anywhere across the 5 boroughs.
And so let's say like this week or this month, what's Jobsy's calendar looking like?
There's Jobsy, there's also Mobi, which is our mobile outreach unit for business services. Hard for me to know exactly where both of those vehicles are out, but as you can imagine, we serve over 100,000 New Yorkers every year on the workforce side and over 25,000 New Yorkers on the business side. So it's hard for me to know exactly where those are the units are and also what our staff's plan is, because we don't just limit our outreach to those vehicles. We're also going out to tables separate from those vehicles. We're also doing other events, co-sponsoring events, organizing our own events in local communities. So across all of that work, we end up serving 100,000 New Yorkers.
And then for the floating models, are the staff members who are supporting that process coming from the 151 staff
Yes,
thing?
yes.
Okay. Going back to the specialized hiring event. So since 2021, NYC at Work conducted 15 specialized events. How many of those resulted in hires that were still employed 90 days later? And how many employers who hired through the program have become repeat partners?
So for the events themselves, some of them are co-hosted with partners in a way that we don't necessarily have access to the hire data, but I would say that about 10 of the 15 have resulted in hires with at least 90-day retention.
Wait, why don't you all have the hiring data?
Some of the, so for example, we co-hosted a career fair with the New York State Department of Labor and Bronx Borough President's Office, and they managed that component of the event. We worked with them to ensure that the event was accessible and inclusive. We supported promotion. We provided disability etiquette and awareness training to all the employers that attended the event, as well as a prep workshop for any of the job seekers who were interested in attending the event. But due to the nature of that event, the other partners were responsible for the management of the attendance.
And then does that happen frequently?
No, most of our events are, as I said, about 10 of the 15 are ones that we've have oversight of the attendance and follow-up. And from those events, we've had individuals who have retained hire. And overall, in terms of our ongoing partnerships with employers, I would say about 20 or so employers become repeat partners. Sometimes it is through an event, sometimes it's not. So, for example, within the city, the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene has attended and participated in many of our citywide recruitments that we host annually with DCAS. And after our one last July, one particular unit followed up with us, and we hosted an interview day for one unit for 5 jobs, and we filled 3 of them. And we're working with a new unit as of the last few weeks to potentially develop that model. And we've been in communication with some other agencies that are looking for a similar kind of event. And then for the public sector, we've had a couple of employers that, so for example, we've done a couple of healthcare recruitments in partnership with Workforce One's Healthcare Career Center. And that partnership with that center in particular has been really, really fruitful. And we had a couple of employers that were interested in those recruitments but weren't able to attend, but we've since been able to connect individuals to jobs at those employers. So that's the Children's Rescue Fund and Mount Sinai.
And just going back to the piece about not collecting the participation and their information, does the main partners then do the follow-up work? Like, because it seems like we're losing a whole slate of people who participated, and will they have opportunities to check in with?
So generally speaking, as I said, our events we're the lead planner and host of those events. And in those cases, we do have oversight of engagement and follow-up. In terms of ones where we have less engagement, we still make sure that any participants are aware that our program is not just a one-time opportunity, and that they can continue to participate in our program. I can even go back. So I mentioned there was someone who is just completed a 6th interview for a job, and she was connected to our program through the event that we did with the Bronx Borough President's Office just a few months ago. So we do continue to engage with people who participate in those events.
And then just in terms of attendance, isn't that data important?
Yes, and that's why we try to host or be the lead host on those events, so that we're able to track that information.
And so I'm just trying to understand, when there's an event that seems unique that you did with the borough president, you're all like, not having that attendance is something you all decided. Like, how and why are we all okay with sort of that exception?
I don't think we're necessarily okay with it. In this particular example, that was an event that they've hosted a couple of years, and this past year was the first time that they engaged our office in planning and the production of the event, and it was already in the process. And I think that through the opportunity of partnering with them on that event, both parties have recognized the benefit of including our office earlier in the planning process. And so, for example, in February, we did a disability etiquette and awareness training for the entire staff of the Bronx Borough President's Office, so that they're including like an overview of the office as a whole, so that not only do they understand how to more effectively engage their constituents with disabilities, they also have a better understanding of the opportunities our office provides, so that they can connect individuals to us as appropriate.
And I will add that when we do co-host and we're not leading, we're doing advocacy. So if we work with the Bronx Borough President, it's like an advocacy moment to share our benefits and our access to job seekers with disabilities. So we don't get the direct access for data and all that stuff, but the goal is to backroom figure it out, and so that we have that constant communication in the future.
And how else are elected officials engaging WellPed?
Yeah, so like
as Abby mentioned, we work with borough presidents, et cetera, but we would love to have council members, elected officials contribute, where their constituents all seek job opportunities, and those are people with disabilities as well. And so we would love to have a presentation for all city council members. We can talk about that, but we would really love to have you involved and reach out to people with disabilities who need jobs.
Absolutely. So going back to the plan, the 2,500 placement goal, of course, represents a very small fraction of the hundreds of thousands of working age New Yorkers with disabilities who are unemployed or underemployed. How did the admin determine that 2,500 was the right goal?
So that was based on some data that was evaluated at the time, including both like actual data and anecdotal data, and hearing from what our partners were hearing and thinking. And so the 2,500 goal was set based on that point in time, based on some of the information that we had. We're excited that we're exceeding the goal, though I think also that warrants scrutiny of what the future looks in terms of like future goals potentially, or how we're serving. So we're always looking to continue to evaluate the programming and the data collection process. And just to some of what we're discussing, right, a lot of this work is still very much in progress. And prior to having this plan, there was no tracking of this at all. And so we're certainly proud of the work that has happened in terms of connecting 3,800 people, but we also know that there's always more work to be done, both on the actual work, but also how we're tracking and reporting and collecting data. And I appreciate you highlighting, Chair, some of the areas of focus, and we're happy to continue the conversation on how to continue to track.
And of the 3,800 placements achieved to date, are you all record keeping if individuals with intellectual disabilities, developmental disabilities, psychiatric disabilities have been hired? How are you all assessing just what within the disability spectrum, who's getting hired?
Yeah, and so again, it depends specifically on the type of programming and how data is collected. And
could you give an example?
Yeah, so for the Partnership for Inclusive Internships, for example, that we run, all of those individuals are connected through the state vocational agencies, so Access VR, the Commission on the Blind. And so we know that through that data collection process, there is a little more robust data collection, whereas I don't want to speak for Chief of Staff Khan, but the Workforce One Center is operating on a different model, and some programming is based on self-identification, right? And so we're mindful of both their different programs of how they operate and how they're collected, but also in terms of, as a job seeker, the experience of questions that you're being asked in order to access services. And so it's always a balance in terms of information that we're collecting and being mindful of the sensitivities around digging deep on to anyone's identity, whether it's across any type of disability, race, gender, identity, et cetera, et cetera. And so different programs operate in different ways in terms of some of the data collection points. And so in terms of the data we're collecting towards the 3,800, is that just individuals with disabilities? But we do know through some of the programs that are more geared towards that they do span a diverse pool of individuals of different types of disabilities, from physical disabilities to mental health challenges, developmental disabilities, et cetera.
So that is being recorded?
In certain programs, it is. In certain programs, it is not.
Yeah, because I'm interested to just better understand what kinds of disabilities are employers okay hiring? And of course, that sort of falls into conversations about workplace discrimination and just better understanding who within the disability community is more vulnerable and unlikely to get hired?
So, I my guess, and we'll research this more. It's all people with disabilities have a difficulty getting hired. So when I was 37, I didn't have a disability, and then but I could, every job that I applied for, I got, and it was because of my qualifications and etc. Then after I got disabilities, it was harder for me to get jobs. I was like rejected. I'm the same person, but I showed disabilities, and I was rejected on several job opportunities. And so, if I can have that challenge, I'm sure that there are many other people with disabilities who have that same concern. So I don't know if it's like they have a speech disability or a physical disability. I think it's like matters across the board. And I think that's why I'm so excited working on employment for people with disabilities, because we help everyone and get them real perfect jobs for them.
And building on that, do you all get an opportunity to give feedback to employers?
I can respond to that on behalf of the NYC at Work program. It's case by case and depends on the employer and the nature of the relationship that we have with them. Part of the way that we build relationships with our employer partners is to be able to have some sort of feedback. Generally speaking, we find that employers in the interview process are less forthcoming with feedback. I think that that's true outside of the workforce development system as well. But we do try, particularly as people move along the hiring process, to be able to develop a report to get information that's feedback, and then also be able to provide our concerns in terms of ways in which that employer may be unintentionally less accessible than they thought they were. And I would say those are conversations that, because we build, direct partnerships, they're often receptive to addressing. That's also why we try to, as a starting point of our relationship development, both in the public and private sector, is doing a disability etiquette and awareness training to make sure that, one, we're kind of level setting language, understanding of disability, creating a safe space to have that communication, so that when there are challenges on at any point, we have that kind of starting point of that conversation to think about it a little bit more comprehensively.
And how are you all recruiting employer partners?
So some of it is response to outreach from employers who contact our office. Sometimes they may reach out to us just for a question about a particular employee that they're having a challenge with, and then we try to engage them more fully. A lot of it is word of mouth and referral. We also do cold calling and outreach. We've also been working with a lot of more employer networks. So for example, we've been working with the New York Tech Alliance to be able to engage more employers that work in tech. We've been working with some disability arts networks that work with a wide range of cultural institutions to be able to expand our work in the arts. And with the city, we have a really great partner in DCAS who we're able to really comprehensively engage city agencies.
And have you all experienced any barriers to types of employment that folks with disabilities are not at all present?
That's a good question. I think that it's hard to say, to know for sure what sectors or employers do or don't have people with disabilities in them. I generally operate under the assumption that those individuals are there. They just may not have disclosed, or their employer may not be aware of that. But employment has changed.
But in terms of the jobs that folks with disabilities are getting hired into, are there fields that you're seeing are not representative?
I think that among the job seekers that we work with, there are some skills gaps as employment has changed, as they become more heavily reliant on tech, as certain areas have shifted. But that's speaking specifically for our set of job seekers. I think that, our goal is to not just have one person in engineering, for example, but to make that a field that is more accessible and inclusive. And so, ways in which we can work with our partners to address some of those like sector-based barriers. That's something that we are working together on. And for NYC at Work in particular, we've been trying to figure out what opportunities there are to address some of those skills gaps a little bit more comprehensively. It's a challenging job market right now.
And with the skills gaps, how is NYC at Work or just Moped supporting folks in ensuring that they've learned to use the laptop or whatever devices are necessary for a new job?
Yes, so the digital divide is definitely a significant barrier. NYC at Work has provided computers directly to job seekers who didn't have either a computer at all or something that was usable, particularly like around 2021, 2022. We did have a pilot program with Strive International where we worked with them to run a skills training that was a little bit more entry-level computer skills and Microsoft Office skills. And it's something that now in our kind of new structure within the Workforce One, we're in a position where we're able to utilize the resources and trainings that Workforce One offers, and then also consider how we can do that a little bit more comprehensively in the future as well.
And what are those trainings that Workforce One centers?
So at our hub centers, we offer digital literacy workshops, and we also have computer labs at all of our centers in Workforce One. So all of the 17 physical centers.
And those computers are voluntary. Are you talking about, are they a part of a digital literacy class or?
So there's digital literacy workshops that happened at the 5 hub centers, and then but across all of our centers, even the one there's a center not too far away from here, 10-minute walk on Wall Street, where if you're a New Yorker, you want to apply for jobs, there's a computer lab available for you. You could walk in, no appointment needed, go through connect with our staff, get a sense of your career counseling needs, get some resume help. You could even edit your resume at one of our computers in that computer lab, and that's available to all of our centers.
But I would also add work that we can do more is the cross relationships. So with seniors with disabilities, it's harder for them to get comfortable with a computer and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm hoping to meet with the aging commissioner soon and collaborate on these issues because or veterans with disabilities, like the connection between agencies that relate to disabilities is important, and we're trying to move that forward now.
So at the current moment, does Moped offer skills building trainings or refer them out?
Right now, we refer job seekers either to the available trainings within the Workforce One Center or to our partners, but it's something that, as I said, we've been trying to assess, our capacity and what the opportunities are for that to be something that our team can respond to more comprehensively.
Yeah, I think it would be important to just better understand what obstacles are folks with disabilities experiencing outside of their disabilities that is perhaps preventing them from securing a permanent job, and for our city to better understand that, to be able to ensure that we're filling those gaps. Since you brought up veterans and older folks, do you all have data in terms of like what age group of people with disabilities are more likely to be able to get a job?
I believe we have that, not here, but we'll provide it afterwards because we are working with the Veterans Services and the aging, so we can share that information after that.
And do aging and Veterans Services keep specific data on folks with disabilities?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I want to come to some questions about the federal threats. So the city comptroller is estimating that 725,000 New York City Medicaid enrollees will lose their coverage through the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, reporting requirements and recertifications, and 230,000 more New Yorkers will lose essential plan coverage effective July 1st. 2026. Has the city assessed how many current or prospective participants in NYC at Work, Scion, and PII are among those at risk of losing Medicaid coverage this summer?
So I'll begin and then turn it over to others. So the work requirements, the Medicaid cuts, and the SNAP benefits, theoretically, people with disabilities will be exempt. However, it's not clear because this is only, it's like there's no finite rule until June. And so we have been working with other city agencies to determine that. And in fact, yesterday I spoke with the DSS commissioner about the population that people with disabilities have and how might that have an impact on the cuts, federal cuts, and SNAP benefits. And we're going to research that because I think that's a smaller set and we could actually make it zero if we figure out a creative way to do with that. And so that's like something that we've been talking about like right now.
And what kind of outreach will the city do to help program participants retain coverage or document exemptions before the July 1st deadline?
Yeah, so I would urge you to talk to DSS because they're doing a extensive outreach and campaign to move that forward, and they want all city agencies or offices to be involved, and so that is in the works.
Home and community-based services, the services that allow people with significant disabilities to live and work independently, are among the optional Medicaid benefits most vulnerable to state cuts when federal revenues decline. Has the city modeled how potential HCBS reductions would affect workforce participation among current NYC at Work, Scion, PII participants, and what do those projections show?
We don't have specific data on for those particular programs, but as the commissioner mentioned, as the cuts ahead are potentially dramatically impacting a broad swath of New Yorkers, including with people with disabilities, it is something that the city is very much focused on and making sure that people are maintaining their benefits, have the information they need. And so we're mindful of the threats that are coming. We know that these are being framed as trying to be an effective workforce development tool for connecting people, but we know that that is not the case. These are cruel cuts ahead, and so we are doing all we can to make sure that New Yorkers are informed, and that work is being led by DSS, and that New Yorkers are supported to make sure that they are maintaining benefits, have connection to the services that they need, and then continuing to evaluate in terms of how we are structuring our programming and allocating funding to make sure that we are best serving New Yorkers across a variety of different backgrounds and demographics.
So with DSS leading on the information piece, how are you all contributing to DSS?
Well, I know from talent, there's many different city agencies that are working hand in hand with DSS and City Hall and even partners across the state to make sure that information is being collected. We're monitoring, like some of these things are still uncertain. And so we're plugged into that work to see from the workforce development piece how we can be supportive, and I'll let commissioners speak too.
Yeah, so I think that DSS is coordinating and asking for every agency or every office what their role could play. And so for us, it's the disability community and what people will get exempt, great. What will not get exempt, or other issues. So that's like our main goal. But every agency, with like example, the DYCD, what would happen if kids occurred, and so all these agencies are in on it on their specific work that they've been doing.
And then on an individual level, is Moped creating any advocacy tools or just material on the looming federal cuts and its impact?
Yeah, and that's one of the things that we're gonna talk to DSS. We don't want to put that out to the broader public because we don't want people to be scared. So once we find out, like, if that will impact some disability communities compared to others, then we'll assess and figure out what makes the most sense, but more targeted rather than broad.
And are you getting outreach from folks with disabilities on the question about the potential federal cuts and what's coming?
Yeah, I mean, like, I imagine every agency, the people are nervous. I'm nervous. I mean, everybody's nervous. And so that's what we want to do, is to calm the nervousness for some, but support for those who may need it. And in our case, Moped, it's a complicated dance because we are not going to have all people exempt, and we're not going to have all people being cut. So we have to figure out how to move that forward.
And does the city have a contingency plan if the state reduces HCBS funding?
I don't know.
Would the city, you think, be prepared to provide city-funded bridge services for individuals who lose HCBS supports and as a result can no longer maintain employment?
Well, I think that the administration is thinking about this consistently, and I don't have the exact thoughts that they may have, but from the mayor onwards, we're very concerned about this and the impact that will have on New York City. It's not just one agency, or it's a company. It's like a nationwide problem.
No, I'm really relieved to hear that the admin is laser focused on ensuring that New Yorkers know what's coming and the supports available. I would definitely urge earlier rather than sooner on this information.
Yeah.
The new work requirements under the One Big Beautiful Bill Act require certain Medicaid recipients to document 80 hours per month of qualifying activity. People with disabilities who qualify for an exemption are still going to need to document that exemption. What is the city doing to ensure that New Yorkers with disabilities know their rights, can document their exemption, and do not lose Medicaid coverage through administrative failure rather than ineligibility?
I'm actually, I don't know if people who are exempt need to do the 80-hour, but I'll double check that. But in general, we want to use our communication platform to share that out to people. Again, keeping in mind that some people are exempt, like they may not require the same level of concern as people who have cuts looming forward. And so that's what we're discussing with DSS deeply.
And then a ProPublica investigation published last month revealed that the Trump admin is actively finalizing a rule that would deduct the value of a disabled adult's bedroom from their monthly SSI payments if any family member in the household receives SNAP, regardless of their family's income. For a disabled adult living at home with low-income parents, this could reduce SSI by up to 1/3, approximately $330 per month, or eliminate it entirely. Has the administration taken a formal position on this proposed rule through advocacy to the New York congressional delegation or any other channel?
We have not, but I would love to pursue that because I didn't know it existed, and so it was really great to share that. Thank you.
Of course. Coming to some more questions on employment discrimination, what's the working relationship between MOPED and CCHR?
A good relationship. And we have a new commissioner, and so I had a meeting with her early on, and we're doing some co-convenings with her as well. And so as we move forward, we would partner with CCRH. And
Yeah.
I can also add that over the last several years, we've also co-hosted Know Your Rights related to employment workshops. So, it's definitely a long-term partnership.
And then when a participant in a city disability employment program experiences discrimination or an accommodation denial from their employer, is there a formal referral pathway to CCHR? And if yes, how does it work in practice?
So for NYC org in particular, we will make a referral to CCHR, but we don't get directly involved in that process.
And is anyone tracking whether those referrals result in relief?
No, as I said, we don't get involved directly in that process.
And is that just because of the function of MOPED?
yeah, we're not an enforcing office, but CCHR has enforcing priorities, and so that's the reason we can't be involved in that process.
But in terms of just better understanding the kinds of discriminatory experiences that folks are facing, wouldn't you say that this is an important data point?
Oh, definitely. And we have in our website, in our disability training, we have these types of barriers that we provide to anybody who wants to partake on this. And that includes city council members and your staff.
And then on the kinds of discrimination or accommodation denials, has there been any joint advocacy efforts to speak out against these kinds of negative activities?
Well, I mean, we haven't been actively involved, but we're talking to CCHR about advocacy or other ways that we can move the ball forward, especially we have many mopeds around the country, and that's a very active space that we can maybe organize people to come to DC and do an advocacy tour. I did that when I was in Moya, and we created Cities for Action, and recreating that again would be fantastic.
Would you know what kind of complaints are being filed through CCHR?
No, but we can ask them to send you information if that's helpful.
So again, MOPED is not tracking complaints and or reports of discrimination. So if someone does share they're experiencing some kind of discriminatory behavior, you all refer to CCHR. I know we haven't talked at all about Scion, though it's come up, and also the 55A program. On Scion, SBS reported earlier this year, or last year rather, that the Workforce One system served more than 1,900 individuals with disabilities since the start of the previous admin. How is served defined for that figure? Does it mean job placement, program enrollment, or a single interaction with a career counselor?
Thank you, Chair. I don't have the exact number that you're looking at, so apologies for that. I wouldn't be able to directly respond to that. Happy to follow up on where you're getting the 19,000 served number from, but served would mean a consumption of service. It could even be, right, like using one of the computer labs to do your resume editing, but it could be very intensive. It could be not so intensive, but it is deeper than just walking in. It's a service that is used. And then job placements, we have 1,200 jobs that were received by New Yorkers with disabilities since FY24.
The Scion team completed accessibility walkthroughs of all the Workforce One career centers in 2024. Are you able to share the specific deficiencies that may have been identified, what corrective actions were required, and have all identified deficiencies been remediated?
Yeah, to the degree that was possible and feasible with the resources that we've had, we've made significant improvements across the system. Some of them were behavioral changes by Workforce One Center staff that were focused on the goal of serving adult general population, not necessarily focused on a target population. And so through the work of Scion and the 3-person team that we have doing this work for the 17 centers that serves 100,000 New Yorkers, that team is able to not only did trainings, did the accessibility checks, but followed up with wherever we found behavioral changes needed on our staff's end to create a better, more welcoming and accessible environment. We then conducted change management work at the centers, and we're now doing office hours with those centers so that the staff don't feel as though you do the training, you've been told, change some of your practices, and that's the end of the relationship, but really have an ability to consult with experts that are on SBS staff centrally located. And these are folks that were first initially at MOPD, so they're really experts on the subject matter and receive training from the state as well. And we're working with them to improve our system.
And you mentioned that there are 3 Scion staff members?
We have 3 currently on staff, yes. We have 2 disability resource coordinators. We have a manager of that team. And then we've got, my understanding is 16 interns that are also serving as disability resource associates. They're interns who are all people with disability. Many of them are blind New Yorkers, and they're all based also, when they're working as part of their internship, we have them working at our Workforce One centers. And it's been an incredible partnership with the state's Commission for the Blind and Access VR, where they're not only helping us be more thoughtful about being an employer that has New Yorkers working who are people with disability, but also on the flip side, how can we make sure for other blind New Yorkers and other New Yorkers with disabilities, when they experience that center, are there things they're catching that we can then improve to make the experience better?
And for the internships, do you know if any of the interns have then gone on to retaining a job at the Workforce One centers?
I'm not aware of that number. They're all currently interns, and it's state-funded internships, as I understand, that we've been able to work with.
SBS is not necessarily recruiting the interns.
No, we're recruiting the
you're
interns,
recruiting.
but the funding sources from the state, because we really don't have city funding resources available for the operations of our centers. Most of our centers are almost completely reliant on federal dollars. And this partnership where we were able to expand the work of our 3-person team was the result of some state funding available at the State Commission for the Blind and at Access VR. We do actually know that at least one of these interns will likely be hired at one of our Workforce One centers.
That's great news. And so 3 staff members, do you think that staffing level is adequate? And has that changed from the past? Is this an increase?
I think the number has hovered around 3 and 4. We could always do more, but with the resources that we've had, we've ensured and been very strategic with deploying them in ways in which to not just keep them in the central office at SBS, but leverage them to improve accessibility across the 17 centers. Office hours are a great way where we have 2 of these staff members doing multiple office hours at multiple centers instead of being fully located and deployed at one particular center.
Understood. And then are there other kinds of internship opportunities that you all are making accessible to folks with disabilities? Like, I think the SBS program is really wonderful to hear about. I did not know about that.
So I can speak for at Talent. We have the Partnership for Inclusive Internship that works with connecting people with disabilities to paid internships, primarily in the public sector. Like I mentioned earlier, we fund the staff and the operational cost. It's through a great nonprofit partner, AHRC, who runs the program. The funding for the wages are paid through the state VR agencies. And since March of 2024, over 109 individuals with disabilities have been connected to internships, and 54 of those, 54 individuals have transitioned to permanent employment after completing their internships. So we're excited about that work.
And you said that it's primarily public sector internships. Does that mean that folks went into working in city agencies or?
So it's primarily public sector internships, though 16 out of the 54 job placements have been with city agencies. The rest have been at other non-city agencies.
And do you know what the hourly wages are or were for those permanent placements?
For the permanent placements, it varies quite a bit because there are, like I mentioned, people with disabilities have a variety of different skill sets, experiences, and so the jobs range from high wage IT, like cybersecurity jobs, to data management, to human resources, to office and clerical work and project managers. So the wages range, the salary ranges from like the mid 40,000 to upward of over 100,000 plus dollars.
What happens to PII participants whose Access VR eligibility is denied or whose Access VR services are delayed? Does the city have a contingency funding mechanism to serve them?
In order to be eligible for this particular program, individuals do need to have that certification from the Access VR agencies. Fortunately, AHRC is a great organization that operates our program, but also operates many other types of programming, so may be able to connect them to programming that they are serving or refer them to other types of programs that they may be eligible for.
What's the city's total annual contribution to PII, and what share of overall program funding does that city contribution represent?
So we contribute about $250,000 a year for the programming. The wages, I don't have the exact numbers, but I think over, I'm not sure, I'll have to get back to you on what the exact costs on the wages are, though the wages are obviously a significant cost because we want to make sure that all of the interns are paid.
And is the city using PII to build a pipeline, for its own agencies, or is it designed to place participants broadly?
We obviously want to make sure that we are building the pipeline of city talent and creating an inclusive place to work for being the city of New York, being a model employer. And so we always want to make sure that we are connecting city agencies to the job seekers. And so the internships are primarily city agencies. Not necessarily every job opportunity is, but that's also because of, people choose to accept jobs or pursue jobs in different sectors for a variety of reasons. And so some people want to stay working for the city. I hope they do. I love working for the city, but people are also moving on to great opportunities outside of the city. I would say one thing that even just hosting an intern, even if that intern for one reason or another does not end up permanently working at that intern, it's a really great experience for that agency, just from a cultural change, right? Of understanding getting rid of a lot of the misconceptions and assumptions that city agencies may have. So I would say even if those interns are not ultimately going to be hired or may not choose to work at that city agency. I think even just having an intern who has a disability is a way that can really change behaviors of that city agency. As to that intern might have noticed that, oh, our documents we are creating are not necessarily accessible, and so let's just change the font size or the font type, right? And so things like that, I think, are a really good opportunity to make sure that there's some cultural change happening within the city agencies, so we can continue to be an inclusive employer. But I will say city agencies have also hired our PI interns. I know New York City Public Schools has hired a few interns, and last month, 2 months ago, when we had our co-design announcement, we had committee staff there, which was an exciting announcement in partnership with all of the agencies here. We had a representative from New York City Public Schools who went through the PI program and was connected to a job opportunity. And so we're proud of that work and making sure that the city is being a model employer for all of the employers across the city.
Could you also just walk me through, for my own understanding, how PII is operating, working with folks with disabilities? What is the role from start to end that PII is supporting in these internship placements?
So we fund through AHRC, the nonprofit that operates it, and then they will, and people can find out about it through a variety of sources, right? AHRC is a big nonprofit that already has some connections. We do a lot of work of advocating and sharing out information to city agencies and through our QI Advisory Council, which includes employers, private sector employers as well, to make sure that they are aware of this program and that it exists. And then an individual may be connected through a variety of ways, but there is even an interest form on AHRC's website, and where if someone is interested can express and fill out that form and then potentially be connected to through PI, or like I said, if for whatever reason there's other services that they might not be eligible, AHRC is a great organization that can help connect them to other programming as well. And then they will work at the intern. They're typically 4 to 6 month internships, and then AHRC works closely with them to try to help them secure employment as well.
Got it. And so does PII, what kinds of materials are city agencies receiving, or what's the information that you all are sharing with them?
So we work with city agencies day in and day out, and so we'll always make sure to plug our PI program. I'll have to get back to you in terms of like specific collateral that may be available. Though we do, touching on something that came up earlier, the jobs.nyc.gov website is a useful tool for both employers and job seekers in terms of being able to connect to the suite of services offered across the city and all of the city agencies. So job seekers with disabilities and city agencies who or rather employers who are looking for talent can go to that site and be connected through a variety of sources.
So the Civil Service Law 55A authorizes up to 700 designated positions. As of November 2025, 363 employees were participating across 34 agencies. How many employees are currently participating in the 55A program across how many agencies?
Hi, I'm Katie Natar. I'm the Assistant Commissioner for the Workforce Operations team at DCAS. Currently, we have 368 individuals participating across 36 agencies as of the end of March.
Got it. And what's preventing the program from reaching its 700 position statutory ceiling?
Yeah. I think one of the challenges that the program really fluctuates over time. So as we add new folks to the program, there are folks that are leaving the program. So for example, we may have new hires that are coming in. We have approximately 30 that were hired last year, but we have about 50 folks that are removed from the program, either because of promotion, because they left the agencies, they retired, or they are serving in a different title. So it really fluctuates. So we know that additional engagement is needed to, really get to that number, but we have to kind of like double the goals if we want to get to the 700.
And are you all keeping track of who's getting promoted or how many folks have left the city job? Like, are you keeping track of those various criteria?
Yeah, so we work with the agencies when somebody leave the program. We get the reason as to whether it was because of a retirement, because they went into a different position, or they took a civil service exam and received a promotion in that way. So we do track that.
So you do track that. Are you
Yes.
able to share that with us?
I can share with you. So, for example, across the last 2 years, we had about 98 people that left the program for various reasons. But we can give you a greater breakdown after this.
That'd be great. And then how are you all recruiting qualified candidates?
So one of the things that work really well is the partnerships that we have with MOPD and also with our partner agencies. The way the program is set up, and just to clarify, this is a program that allows individuals to be hired into city government positions and competitive positions without the need to take a civil service exam. So the hiring still happens at the agency level. Agencies still have to have, OMB approval. They have to have a line. Individuals still have to go through the interview process and get selected, and then the agencies will submit their application for us to process. So what we do to supplement just awareness of the program is through the partnership with MOPD. We'll do information sessions. We do that closely with their staff that are involved in the program, so they're job seekers that are involved in the program. We also do just our general outreach to populations that are, whether it's educational institutions, community-based organizations, to make sure that a lot of folks are aware. So we'll have those targeted information sessions, targeted outreach, but the program sits within the Office of Citywide Recruitment, and we do about 15 to 20 events per month, and that's embedded in the information that we share with job seekers.
Wait, what does the Office of Citywide Recruitment do?
So our main job is to go out into the public and really speak about the jobs that are available within city government. So we promote the civil service exams, the process for taking those exams, the different types of positions available across agencies, and kind of like what that application process is.
And is that also happening in collaboration with the Workforce One centers?
Yes, we have a very robust relationship with the Workforce Ones, where we either go to the sites depending on the interest that we have. So we'll go either in person or we'll have virtual sessions. And for the last 2 years, we've been robustly working on a schedule to make sure we're engaging folks there.
I want to recognize we've been joined by Councilmember Rita Joseph. And how many city staff are dedicated to promoting the 55A program at DCAS and MOPED, respectively? And does the admin believe current staffing is sufficient to drive broader agency participation?
So currently we have a staff that is managing the application process from beginning to end, but because the program is embedded into the Office of Citywide Recruitment, which has about 5 staff in terms of promotion, that's spread across. So every time we have what we call Citywide Inclusive Recruiters, every time they go out into the public, they're sharing information about the program.
The Citywide Inclusive Recruiters, how many?
So we have 3 citywide inclusive recruitment specialists. We have a civil service pathway fellow, as well as a deputy director within the Office of Citywide Recruitment.
And the Citywide Inclusive Specialists, could you share a little bit more about what they do in the field?
Yeah, so their main role is to make sure that the public is aware of city jobs. We know a lot of the challenges that we have with hiring just across the board is that folks are not familiar with the civil service exams. And when they think about city government, they may only think about specific titles. So we do civil service one-on-one information sessions where we're really just breaking down the beginning. Here's what city government looks like. Here are the jobs that you can get into. Here's what the civil service exam looks like. Here's when the schedule is is out. Here's fee waivers. Here's more information about the 55A program. So we really give an overall view of what it means to work for the city. We also partner with our community partners, educational institutions. We attend career fairs. We do panel conversations. We do a lot of different activities to make sure that folks are aware of city government and the jobs that they can do there.
And so that's mostly through invitations, or do they also have just like outreach hours where they're in a neighborhood, in a community?
We do it all across the 5 boroughs and virtually. So, for example, we have specific demographics that we're trying to reach, including people with disabilities, veterans, those that are underrepresented in city government. So we do outreach to make sure that we are targeting those populations. So we'd work with, let's say, DOE, or we'll work with a shelter to make sure that we're engaging their populations. And then we also get invitations to participate in different events.
I will now pass it to Councilmember Joseph to ask her questions if she's ready.
Oh yeah, I'm ready. Good morning. Morning, yes, afternoon. I have a couple of questions around transportation. I noticed mostly around elevator outages on MTA subways remain a documented barrier to employment for New Yorkers with mobility disability. Does the city have a formal coordination? Do you work in partnership with MTA to maybe do an assessment to see where they are in key locations as to where we can create barriers? For example, in my district, I only had one elevator that was accessible. For 2 years, we worked with MTA. We finally got a second one. Are you looking around the city at the ecosystem of transportation? That's one of the biggest barriers, including for New York City students. And we've heard that across the city, CUNY students, New York City public school students who cannot sometimes have no routes to get to their destination. So how are we working with interagency to make sure that accessibility for transportation across the board are available for New Yorkers with disabilities?
So I will, I'm the commissioner of disabilities, and we have a regular meeting with MTA people involved. And this is the first thing that we mentioned, because even for me, when I worked in the health department, there was one elevator, and then there was another elevator that'd be better, that was closer, and then they finally did it, and it was like a revelation. I could go in one direction, I can go in another direction. It was great. So that we're working with them on that, and we're hoping to resolve it. To be fair, MTA does prioritize this work, and so we're hoping they will continue to prioritize this, especially in areas that is really needed. So I'm gonna keep pushing.
Oh yeah, we'll keep pushing as well. But is there a dollar amount attached to this work? For example, I had set a goal with New York City Public School when I was the education chair to make sure that buildings are accessible by 2030 for all New York City students with $1 billion investment. What does that look like on your end?
I don't know, but I will find out from MTA and for our work as well.
Thank you. I had a question about cliff. Benefit cliffs. The risk of losing SSDI, SSI, Medicaid eligibility upon entering the workforce is one of the most frequently cited barriers to employment for people with disabilities. Which city programs specifically address the benefit cliff, and how?
Hi, I'm Abby Meyerhoff, the Director of Programs for NYC at Work. So I can speak on behalf of our program and the resources that we utilize. Within our staff, we have someone who is a benefits counselor, and so she provides individual advisement to participants of our program. And we also work closely with the Department of Consumer and Worker Protection. About 7 years ago, MOPD and DCWP partnered to pilot a financial counseling program that was tailored specifically for individuals with disabilities. And the result of that pilot led to training that has been implemented for all of the financial counselors. And DCWP can certainly explain more about that, but we work in partnership with those counselors and with DCWP to ensure that individuals who participate in our program have access to that financial counseling as well. It's not as in-depth as benefits counseling, but it's a really great first step for most individuals who we interact with on that
And
area.
how do you do your outreach and engagement with communities with disabilities?
In general, for the NYC at Work program, we say yes to almost every invitation we receive. We go to a lot of community events, so that's hosted by CBOs, schools, colleges. Just last week, we were at CUNY Leeds career fair.
I was there.
We were there. Sorry, we didn't have a chance to meet then. We host information sessions for a lot of our community partners, and then we respond to individual outreach as well.
And community members with disabilities and English is not their first language. How do you reach them?
Sorry, one moment. So we utilize language access.
And the reality is that even ASL are not like there's different languages in ASL, and so that's like a interesting next step for us to think about how can language access and ASL, for example, expand that reach about language access and ASL and other forms of language.
Very important for our communities. The SNAP work requirement goes into effect in March of 2026. New Yorkers with disability can request exemptions, but must document them. What is the administration doing to ensure that participant in disability employment program who receive SNAP understand the exemption right and do not lose food assistance? Are city programs being used to help our community with disabilities? That's very important.
Yeah, it's very important. We are working, meaning all the agencies are working, and DSS is the lead on this. And every agency or office like ours have to think about our population, in our case, disability communities. It's complicated because a lot of them will be exempt, but some may not. And so we're discussing that with the DSS people on how can we use that, those few people that may not get exempt, and could we make it zero? Like, that would be fantastic, but like we want to discuss that with them in more detail.
Are you also working with ACS for young people who are in foster care who have disability?
Yeah, and we're also, the DYCD also is very engaged on this topic as well, and I'm going to meet with her soon.
So ACS, DSS,
Yeah.
all of the agencies should be working together.
Yeah.
And how are we recruiting people with disabilities and training to enter the workforce and live independent lives? And I know that some of the programs also live in the New York City public schools and creating them, making them independent, learning to travel, and all of that other stuff, and life skills are being taught. How is that partnership working to enter the workforce?
Meaning for high school people.
High school students, internships, apprenticeships. Sometimes our communities with disabilities don't get these opportunities for internships, apprenticeship. How does that work?
Yeah, so I think we can share some examples of internships and stuff that we've had, but personally it matters a lot, the transition from high school to further school or employment is like can be enhanced, because that is what is happening, is like this cliff that people graduate from high school and then where they go. And so that is one of the areas that MOPED wants to get more involved on that with the schools and specifically the special ed people.
Yeah, definitely. There's always a gap there. There's a huge gap there with our students with disabilities who I hear all the time from, who the pathway into college, the pathway into career is not readily available to them because of disabilities. So I think that's where the gap is. And I think talking with other agencies and figuring out a comprehensive plan, not a piecemeal, but a comprehensive plan across the board for our communities who are living with disabilities. Thank you so much. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, my final few questions. Going back to the 55A program, which agencies are the largest participants in the 55A program, and which large city agencies have little to no 55A representation?
Thank you. I see the 55A program and the usage of it is spread across most of our agencies. We'll see the larger agencies do have the higher numbers because of just the vacancies and the amount of positions that they're hiring. But what we also know is that although individuals may not be serving in the 55A program, they're still being hired because they could be hired into a non-competitive title or an exempt or a labor title.
But given you all are keeping a record of the positions that are coming through the 55A program, are you not keeping track of where they're spread across in the city agencies?
Yes, so for the individuals that are serving in the top agencies, and these are individuals that have more than 25 participants, as I mentioned, there'll be
Which
our
agencies?
social services agencies like Department of Social Services, we have NYPD, Department of Education, DOHMH, Department of Finance, so the larger agencies.
I think I'm just trying to understand exactly which agencies are bringing or hiring through the 55A program and which are not.
Yes, so the agencies that I just listed are the top agencies that have the
NYPD.
higher numbers. And then there are also some of the larger agencies as well. And so as it relates to how there are individuals that are using it robustly and individuals that we're working with to enhance their use of the program.
And which agencies would you say that includes in terms of the enhancement?
So in terms of the enhancements in different agencies that we've worked with, we try to spread it across the board. Take, for example, DCAS. One of the things that we do within DCAS is we have agency-specific hiring events. And so we've seen that across the years, like where we may have been at maybe 6 or 7, 2, 3 years ago, now we're at 15, 16. So we're seeing those engagements and partnerships with MOPD to really increase the partnership across the agencies and their usage of the program.
Yeah, I'd really be interested in knowing the specificity here, just to see how we're doing as a city in terms of hiring and retention, and understanding exactly why some agencies have been more proactive, or are the specific roles related to the kind of positions that folks with disabilities have been able to apply for. So I think that is a very important data set. The July 2025 55A Diversity Career Fair produced 13 conditional job offers from 15 participating agencies, with 5 agencies conducting on-the-spot interviews. Why did 10 of the 15 agencies participate without conducting interviews, and what follow-up occurred with those agencies after the fair?
So when we have our citywide, and MOPD can add into that, but when we have our citywide events, not all agencies may readily have OMB approval for their vacancies. And so agencies, and depending on the amount of positions that they are recruiting for, they may choose to conduct on-the-site interviews or hire. For the ones that do not, we do follow up with them to see like what's the engagement after.
What's the OMB relationship again?
So positions still have to be OMB approved. So there's still that financial approval that's needed for anyone that's hired into the 55A program.
So you're saying that agencies that haven't gotten approval are not conducting interviews?
They may not do interviews on the spot, but they're still doing interviews through their normal course of business.
Got it. So specifically an OMB related issue.
Sometimes that is the reason. It's not the only reason. Some agencies, again, depending on the dynamic and the positions that they're looking for and their interview process, they may decide to do their interviews internally, but they do participate to share information about their particular jobs. They may have different positions that are available. One of the things that we also do is we try to do exact matching. So the candidates that are showing up may have direct match to a position. Some agencies may not have a lot of matches to their positions, but they're still able to engage with different job seekers based on other opportunities that they have. And I'll pass it over to Abby.
Thank you. I'll also add that in the course of our follow-up with job seekers and participating agencies, there were multiple agencies that did conduct additional interviews following the recruitment event itself, and the agencies ultimately just decided to go with other candidates. But as I think we mentioned before, the process of going through those interviews and moving ahead in the hiring process is valuable for those individuals as well.
Absolutely. And so for this specific career fair, do you know what follow-up occurred with the agencies afterward?
So I can speak for NYC at Work. We follow up with the agencies afterwards to get a sense in terms of, generally speaking, whether or not candidates that they met with were prepared for the event, were they a match for the positions that they have available, whether they were interested in them for either their existing positions or other positions, and then individual follow-up to try to get some feedback on specific candidates who may be moving forward in the hiring process to help with that as well. And then I'll turn to DCAS for anything additional.
Yes, and for the candidates that are hired, we kind of work with them throughout the 55A application process to make sure that they are able to be onboarded, once there's approval for the positions. So we want to make sure that that process is seamless for them.
Understood. And could you just clarify Moped's relationship again with the 55A program?
Sure. So we work in partnership with DCAS to promote the program both with city agencies and to job seekers, support with the application and onboarding, and then navigating some of the additional hurdles that may come with getting hired at the city.
Well, that's all I've got for today. Thank you all so much. We'll take a very quick 2-minute break. Okay, we're starting up again. Bye. I will now open the hearing for public testimony. I want to remind members of the public that this is a government proceeding and that decorum shall be observed at all times. As such, members of the public shall remain silent at all times. The witness table is reserved for people who wish to testify. No video recording or photography is allowed from the witness table. Further, members of the public may not present audio or video recordings as testimony, but may submit transcripts of such recordings to the Sergeant at Arms for inclusion in the hearing record. If you wish to speak at today's hearing, please fill out an appearance card with the Sergeant at Arms and wait to be recognized. When recognized, you will have 3 minutes to speak on today's oversight topic. If you have a written statement or additional written testimony you wish to submit for the record, please provide a copy of that testimony to the Sergeant at Arms. You may also email written testimony to testimony@council.nyc.gov within 72 hours of this hearing. Audio and video recordings will not be accepted. I want to bring up the first in-person panel: Evan Yankee, Anthony Phillips, Kathleen Collins, Bilquis Garcia. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, no worries. Gregory Meaves. Whenever you're ready.
Good morning. My name is Evan Yankee, and I am the Advocacy Director at the Brooklyn Center for Independence of the Disabled, an independent living center supporting people with disabilities in Brooklyn and beyond. People with disabilities face tremendous barriers to equal economic opportunity, including foremost discrimination, which is typically cited as most impactful in surveys, and transportation accessibility. Today, though, I want to talk about one particular barrier. As you may be aware, 19 disability and labor groups have joined us to write and advocate in opposition to Intro 303, a bill penalizing people with disabilities for receiving 24-hour live-in home care. This bill, if passed, will penalize people with disabilities and care providers for providing care that is assigned to them by managed long-term care plans. People with disabilities in consumer-directed care will be fined $500 a day. Home care workers will lose jobs as home care agencies pull out of work rather than face fines. The supporters of this bill claim that home care agencies will be able to easily switch 24-hour live-in shifts to 12-hour split shifts, but this is not true. It is unbelievable to anyone who has advocated for a fairer, more progressive Medicaid system, and it should be unbelievable to city council members. We suspect many elected officials know better, but are wary of crossing mobilized groups who don't. I'm holding up a Medicaid authorization. This is the form that assigns a person with a disability 24-hour live-in care through no choice of their own. The authorization is typically given by a managed long-term care plan and determines the type of care that you get. You cannot change it on your own. Home care agencies cannot change it. Only an individual can appeal it, but it is a long process with hundreds of steps. It takes a long time to go through this punishing process, and appeals sometimes fail. Intro 303 would start fining people for having a live-in care authorization 90 days after the bill passes, $500 a day. Rather than face fines, people will go without care, the home care industry will start to collapse, workers will lose jobs. The supporters of this bill like to talk about how much they care about workers. Many of the home care workers on 24-hour shifts are family members, neighbors, friends, people with disabilities themselves. As thousands of people with disabilities lose care, these workers will lose jobs. Family members who are paid home care workers will likely continue providing 24-hour care, but will not be paid for it. There could not be a more urgent threat to economic opportunity than this bill. We appreciate that this committee exists for people with disabilities, and we appreciate the work you all have done to make this happen, especially the staff here and the council members. We especially appreciate the members of this committee who have truly listened to disability advocates about Intro 303. We urge you today to speak up and help us stop this threat before it hurts us all. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Okay.
Hold on.
Yeah, have my dad. Look up. First of all, let's look at this. Looking up there, I see people with glasses. That's the disability. But I don't see nobody would care. Okay, that's number one. Number, let me get into the bill. First of all, if you are talking about people working, they need help. That's number one. Number two, if they don't have home aid, and some need 24 hours, you know what they're gonna do? They are gonna blame the city. Why? Because what is this person have 24 hours? When you gonna say, oh, we can't get out because we don't have no money. But I mean, really, it's only for us. And for y'all too, because when you get a certain age, you do what you can do. You need home care. Everybody, you have a grandmother. They gonna need home care 24 hours. What you gonna do? You gonna say, oh, we don't do that no more. And then everybody is gonna be stuck. Really, I am trying to be cool. Because I heard a lot, but I seen a little. That's all I'm gonna say. You get me home care today, the barber is will be you laying in your house.
Thank you, Tony. Hello, I'm Belkis Garcia. I'm a staff attorney at the Legal Aid Society. We represent low-income people in New York. As you've heard a lot today, people with disabilities are disproportionately impacted by poverty. And as you have discussed today, and as we're saying, one of the ways that people with disabilities can live independently in the community and obtain employment and maintain employment is through home care. And some of those folks require 24-hour home care. And at Legal Aid, we represent both people with disabilities who require 24-hour home care and those workers who provide the caretakers. And it demands us to have an intersectional approach to the work, and it's with that lens that we strongly oppose Intro 303. As Evan was saying, this is a bill that proposes to end 24-hour home care, but it does nothing to replace that care with anything, right? That is incredibly dangerous. And again, I'd like to reiterate what was said, which is we've heard a lot that this bill will just kind of magically make it that if you have only a care for 12 hours, that somebody will just get a worker for the second half of the day, or it's possible no care at all. That's not how this system works. That's not what's going to happen. It can't happen that way. You need an approval from your insurance company. I think people are familiar with that concept. And that approval has to follow state law, state rules, state contracts, and a city bill can't change that. What it will cause is home care agencies not sending people into the shifts, and perhaps sending them in for only the 12 hours. It will certainly lead to agencies not taking on new 24-hour cases, right? So people are going to not get work and people are going to lose care. And I think we can all agree that that is dangerous, but also it's a gift to the insurance companies, right? Like they get to keep more of the money that they're getting and provide less care. So just a couple of things I wanted to flag. The bill has been amended since it was first introduced. That has only made the bill worse. It has not corrected anything. I also wanted to touch on some of the things you spoke about earlier about the federal cuts, and that home care is particularly vulnerable to how states respond. If passed, this really heightens that vulnerability. And one way that a state could respond is eliminating all 24-hour care. That's not really a scare tactic. That is a true vulnerability. So I just want to take one moment. I want to thank the members of the committee who have spoken with the people with disabilities, the community, and advocates on this issue. I particularly want to thank those of the committee members who aren't here, but who came off the bill, and for people who have been being in opposition and being brave enough to be vocal about that opposition. So what we're asking now is that you communicate that opposition in committee and work with us on proposals that we have that we think actually do meet the needs of both of these constituencies. Thank you, and thank you for the opportunity to testify. Sorry for going over time.
Good afternoon, Chair Hanif and other members of the committee. Thank you for your time today to hold this important hearing. My name is Gregory Meaves, and I'm the New York Director of the Bridges from School to Work program, a national nonprofit. We work with more than 85 schools around the city, both in a classroom setting and through one-on-one sessions to develop the work readiness of young adults with disabilities and match their interests and abilities to the needs of employers to help them gain competitive, integrated employment. Since Bridges launched in New York City in 2019, our team has provided job placement services to 750 young adults and connected 618 of them, 82%, to quality jobs while supporting them with that transition. All Bridges participants who seek our help have one or more disabilities. Most Bridges participants are diagnosed with a specific learning disability, autism spectrum disorder, speech or language impairment, or intellectual disability. We serve young adults between 14 and 24, but most come to us between 17 and 19. Demographically speaking, over 90% of our participants are youth of color, and most are from low-income communities, though we don't track specific income data. We call on the City Council to support programs like Bridges to ensure that we can expand our services to meet the demand around the city and to help participants learn career readiness skills and find a job to start their journey to financial independence. We continue to support our participants after they get hired for 1 year post-placement to ensure they have the tools and support they need to succeed in their job. The real impact of Bridges extends far beyond just landing a job. We help our young adults keep the job and progress along their career pathway. Bridges also instills character, builds confidence, and steers young adults towards a future filled with possibilities. Our program's success has led to increased demand as more people become aware of our services, resulting in waiting lists for both of our programs. Support from the City Council for Bridges and other programs like ours is crucial in improving New York's ecosystem of support and will continue to provide more options for people with disabilities across the city. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd now like to call Julia Linder, Tonto Kubri, Mariah Engelberg, and Kathleen Collins. And sorry if I've mispronounced your names. Anyone can start. Thank you.
Gotcha. Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to testify. My name is Julia Linder, and I represent the Harlem Independent Living Center, which is a disability-led nonprofit founded in 1990, working to support the freedom and self-determination of people with disabilities, predominantly from racially marginalized communities in Upper Manhattan, New York City, and New York State. We all know that any conversation about economic opportunity and the disability community must encompass much more than jobs, though employment disparities are stark, especially among Black and Hispanic New Yorkers with disabilities, as well as those with greater support needs and activities of daily living. But economic opportunity starts long before anyone gets to a workplace and is often preconditioned on one's ability to leave home, attend school, work, and participate in community life. For some members of our community, home care is exactly what makes that possible, and for that reason, any serious discussion on this topic must consider the implications of Intro 303. We all, from the disability community, agree that home care workers must be paid for every single hour they work and should not be subjected to conditions like wage theft, coercion, and retaliation. But Intro 303 poses dire risks for people who receive live-in care, given how Medicare home care is authorized and funded at the state level. Intro 303's unfunded mandate will make it harder to staff high need cases, harder to maintain consistent coverage, and ultimately harder for people with disabilities to remain in the community with access to any economic opportunity. I join my colleagues here today in asking members of the committee and the council more broadly not to advance Intro 303 and instead address wage theft, coercion, and retaliation through separate measures that the city is actually able to meaningfully enact and see through. Economic opportunity depends on stable support systems, and I urge the council to continue strengthening rather than destabilizing them. Thank you very much.
Girls first. Girls first. Okay, thank you. My parents told me that way.
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you, Chair Hanif and members of the Committee on Disabilities for holding this hearing and giving us the opportunity to testify. I'm Mariah Engelberg, an organizer at A Better Balance, a national legal services and advocacy organization headquartered in New York City that advocates for paid leave and sick and safe time laws across the country so that workers and the people that they love can care for themselves without sacrificing their paycheck. Unfortunately, in New York State, when workers experience a serious medical issue, including cancer, substance use disorder, a mental health crisis, or any other serious health issue, workers are forced to sacrifice their health for a paycheck. Under New York's paid medical leave program, known as temporary disability insurance, or TDI, workers are forced to try to live off of $170 a week in compensation without the guarantee of health insurance, job protection, or the ability to take that leave intermittently. This program hasn't been touched since 1989, and it shows. There isn't a single person in New York City who can live off of $170 a week in 2026. This outdated program has real implications for workers across the state. A Better Balance has a free and confidential legal helpline. We receive many calls from workers in New York who are shocked to discover that New York's paid medical leave program offers a maximum of $170 a week without job protection, the ability to take that leave intermittently, or health insurance continuation. Just last week, Lynn, a customer service manager in New York City, called our helpline after she received a cancer diagnosis. Her doctor advised remote work accommodations because she's immunocompromised and experiencing other symptoms while undergoing chemotherapy. Her employer denied her request to work remotely, but offered that she could work a part-time schedule to attend to her medical needs. However, this arrangement, aside from not fully addressing her medical needs, would require her to take off multiple days per week without pay. Because New York's temporary disability insurance benefits cannot be used intermittently, she would be unable to use temporary disability insurance to recoup any of her lost income. Alternatively, she could request a continuous period of medical leave from her job so as to safeguard her health while she is undergoing treatment and receive temporary disability insurance benefits during that time. But the benefit amount at $170 a week is so low that it would make more financial sense for her to accept the part-time work schedule her employer offered than to apply for TDI, even at risk of further compromising her health. In addition, Lynn is extremely worried about keeping her job and health insurance, neither of which TDI guarantees. Lynn told us, "I wish I had more protection and a higher stipend through temporary disability insurance. I'm in a position where I have to fight through symptoms to get to work and put myself more at risk in terms of infection. If temporary disability insurance law protected my insurance and my job, I would be able to take the leave I need." And we urge the City Council to support the 1 in 5 New Yorkers in the state who live with a disability and call for the state to pass S172 and A9571. Thank you.
I don't know if it's morning or afternoon right now, but whatever. Good morning or good afternoon, Chair Hanif and the invisible members of the committee here, which I see there. I don't see them here, so I guess they're invisible, just like we in the disability community are invisible to them. I'm a native New Yorker. I grew up in New York. I'm a congenital quadruple amputee, as you can see. And I'm one of the few exceptions that did work for 30 years. I worked for the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey as an attorney. I went to a CLE course once where I found out that I'm in the 1% of the population, of the disabled population, that has beyond a college degree, that has a master's in that, which I was really shocked by that calculation. New Yorkers with disabilities are incredibly diverse, yet we continue to face systematic barriers to economic opportunity, especially in housing, employment, education, transportation, and access to city services. I urge the City Council to focus. Here I'm talking about 5 key things, but I'll send a letter with many more. First, we need to expand accessible, affordable housing and prioritize people with disabilities in housing lotteries, and to make that housing lottery more accessible, because I know many people with cognitive disabilities have difficulty navigating that website you have. Second, we need to include disability-owned business enterprises in the Minority and Women-Owned Business Enterprise Program to open real economic opportunities. Third, we need to provide more funding to the MTA for the same-day, on-demand paratransit so people can work and live independently. I'm one of the few members on that has that, and it has opened my life completely. I can go places, be here, leave here when I want to, not when I set a pre-time with Access-a-Ride over 24 hours ago. It's fantastic, and it's cheaper than what we have. So I don't understand why we can't push for that. Fourth, and that helps also people with employment. Fourth, support more funding for New York State for home care, which is more cost-effective than institutional care and allows people to remain safely at home. Further, this committee should support state-level legislation that would provide better wages and benefits for home care workers by New York State and allow more New Yorkers with disabilities to be eligible for home care, which they have reduced that eligibility. So now you end up in a nursing home before you can have home care, which is a terrible thing for taxpayers. First, make all city buildings, programs, and websites fully accessible. Decades after federal disability laws, many are still not accessible. And finally, increase funding for the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities. They do so much with so little money, and they really need so much more money. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just here for transportation. I'm part of the Fair Fare program. I'm part of the Community Access program too on disability. There's a lot of loopholes to build trains. New building owners, they build trains, but they got the properties on top of the trains, but they don't want to build on for the train to access. I'm just giving us a place that's called Access Crossing. They just built the train. They just built the buildings on the top of the trains. They promised parking lots. They promised a lot of things. But these building owners, they promise a lot of things for the neighborhood. That helps the neighborhood for the trains, to support them. Like the F train on East Broadway, there's the one Manhattan Square with 72-story buildings. I know they could afford to help us for the transportations and everything like that. But it's the only problem is that's a lot of loopholes that we have to go through just to build trains, elevators, and everything like that for you guys and everything like that. Because I'm just here for everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'd like to call Michelle Ann Blonde Monville, Lisa Shinehouse, Amy Monique Waddle, Shannon Shaw.
Good afternoon, Committee Chair Hanif, and any members who might be on Zoom. My name is Shannon Shaw, and I'm representing HeartShare. So HeartShare, this topic is critical to our work. In 2025, we launched a strategic plan that centers economic empowerment as a core priority for New Yorkers with disability. HeartShare serves over 2,700 people with disabilities, intellectual and developmental disabilities, alongside children and families navigating the child welfare system. And you are aware of one of our programs that we once held in the Wyckoff community. And these families are, of course, navigating poverty and instability. And across all of our programs, the goal is to support New Yorkers most underestimated. And I believe everyone in this room, if you have a disability or you're connected with someone, you understand the underestimation. And we want to contribute. We serve people. We see people every day who want to work. They want to contribute, build skills, and earn income. The barrier is not motivation. It is a system that does not consistently connect people to real employment pathways. For individuals with developmental disabilities, the numbers are stark. Only a fraction are employed in competitive jobs, despite strong interest in working. In our own programs, while a small percentage of participants are currently employed, the overwhelming majority want to work. We see similar patterns with young people age out of foster care. And I know committee member Rita Joseph did talk about the intersection of people in foster care and also people with disabilities. And even when they are motivated and capable, gaps in education, support, and access limit their ability to enter and stay in the workforce. At HeartShare, we are closing that gap. We've built a workforce development approach that starts early and meets people where they are. In our early childhood programs, we are introducing skill building through hands-on learning. Baking, we have a bakery, jewelry making with a company called Ash & Co, started by a nonverbal girl in our program whose name is Ashley, and they have a whole org chart where there is a development of technology, there's a VP of technology, there's a VP of products. I wish everyone could come out. I would have brought you, but I think they might cost more than $5. And they have screen printing and other creative activities that build confidence, routine, and foundational skills. For adults, our supported employment program provides individualized job placements and coaching. Participants are matched to roles based on their strengths and interests, with ongoing support to ensure they can succeed and stay employed. We've seen firsthand how employment transforms lives, increasing independence, confidence, and a sense of belonging. But these successes are still limited by broader system changes. There's a disconnect between training and actual job placement. Too many individuals complete programs but are not connected to employers who are ready to hire and support. We do want to offer some recommendations. Investment in supported employment and job coaching that continues after placement. Expand partnerships with employers and incentivize inclusive hiring. Address benefit cliffs so individuals are not penalized for working, and thank you for raising that earlier. Improve transportation access for individuals traveling to work or wherever else they want to go. Strengthen coordination across workforce, disability, and social service systems. New York City is a city that, when given the opportunity, shows up for people. There's a saying that New Yorkers they're not nice people, but they're kind people. And I believe investment in our people will allow so many employers and others the opportunity to actually be kind. And with that, I thank you for your time.
Good afternoon. I'm Amy Monique Waddell. I am here on behalf of Goodwill, New York, New Jersey. Goodwill's core mission is removing barriers to employment to ensure that no talent is sidelined. Through our programs for people with intellectual disabilities and serious mental illness, we deliver services that connect New Yorkers to work. Last year alone, we placed hundreds of New Yorkers with disabilities into jobs and supported the retention of hundreds more. None of this is charity. We identify strong talent and match skilled workers to the open positions employers are trying to fill. It's good for people with disabilities, it's good for employers competing for talent, and it's good for New York City's economy. That commitment was recently recognized with a significant co-design grant funding that ensures people we serve are at the table as our programs are developed, not just on the receiving end of them. That work has never mattered more. Federal Medicaid changes and tightening eligibility rules threaten the very programs that make economic opportunity possible for our friends and neighbors with disabilities. We are working harder than ever to ensure the sustainability of these critical programs and to support the workforce that opens the doors to opportunity, and we need the Council's partnership to do so. I'm here today to ask the Council to support two specific investments. First, our Harlem Pros program, which provides recovery-oriented mental health services to adults with serious mental illnesses in Upper Manhattan. The model works, but current reimbursement does not cover the cost of delivering services, which threatens the program's sustainability. We've requested $150,000 through the Mental Health Services for Vulnerable Populations Initiative to expand into art therapy opportunities, cognitive remediation, and youth-focused programming that keeps young adults engaged in care and on the path to employment. Second, our direct support professional training and placement program, which launched last year. We're seeking and we're asking, we've requested rather, $250,000 through the Job Training and Placement Initiative to recruit, train, and place candidates into stable human services careers as DSPs. We know that New York City currently has DSP roles that sit vacant, and they are desperately needed to be filled. With a full year of retention support after hire, that's what we plan to do. Both asks address the same equation: a workforce ready to work, employers ready to hire, and a city that needs both. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair Hanif and members of the Disabilities Committee. My name is Lisa Shinehouse, Director of Community Services at OHEL Children's Home and Family Services. Thank you for holding this critical oversight hearing. OHEL Children's Home and Family Services began in 1969 as a small foster care agency. Now a full-service, best-in-class social service organization, our mission is to transform the lives of individuals and families by providing compassionate, supportive social services that foster resilience, promote well-being, reduce stigma, and create inclusive communities where all are welcome. Every year, our programs and services reach tens of thousands of youth, adults, older adults, families, and communities around the world, and include but are not limited to trauma, bereavement, and crisis response services, residential, day programming, outpatient mental health services, substance abuse programs, and much more. Two specific programs I'm very proud of support individuals with intellectual disabilities and in obtaining and maintaining meaningful employment. The first is a pre-vocational training program where we teach a variety of skills to obtain a job. Soft skills, including making eye contact and communicating, and acting appropriately in the workplace. Hard skills include typing, stocking shelves, packing groceries, things like that. We cater to individuals based on their interests and goals. The second is a supported employment program where we guide and oversee individuals who already have a job and earn at least minimum wage so that they can keep that job and be successful. You talked a lot about retention. This is one great way to keep job retention. Today, we are proud to have over hundreds of people, several hundred people in our pre-voc training and over 100 people in jobs. In my years at OHEL, we have worked to make dreams come true through these programs. One quick story. We worked with a woman who desperately wanted to star on Broadway. Unfortunately, she couldn't sing or dance. Those were her words, not ours. But we identified a way for her to be part of the community of Broadway. That's what she wanted. And we got her a job as an usher at a theater. And that really made her dream come true, and it was so gratifying for us to give her that opportunity. We also, as part of Mental Health Awareness Month, we also wanted to share that we are experts at we are experts at working with individuals with severe and persistent mental illness, especially those who need help rejoining the workforce. Many of the individuals we meet hold master's degrees and are seeking jobs at high-end organizations. However, they experience trauma or mental illness that took them away from their career pathway. OHEL is here to help them, guide them on their journey. One path we use is Access VR, and we work with many youth for that as well. That's something that the other councilwoman discussed. Also, one of the things we're very proud, and we thank the City Council for their support, is we have a City Council grant where we train peer mentors in the mental health system. A peer is a person with lived experience who has experienced similar challenges and is currently in recovery. We support the peers in their training and their annual CEU credits to maintain that certification, and we help them find jobs, whether it's at our organizations and or other organizations where their lived experience is so important. One of the things that we've noticed recently is that there are many people in New York City that are dual diagnosed with developmental disabilities such as autism and having a mental health issue as well. And we're seeing that they're struggling to receive their services as they don't really fit in the bucket of OMH or OPWZ, and they really haven't been able to be served well. Thank you for the opportunity to testify, and I appreciate your commitment to the disabilities community.
I had a question for, I guess all three of you would be able to respond to this. But Shannon, you raised it in your testimony around the kind of anecdotal statistics about which people within the disability community are more likely to get hired. Are you all able to share more about the obstacles of what is preventing folks with psychiatric needs maybe to not get the same opportunities as others, or what's your experience working with the employment placement specifically?
So at HeartShare, before the pandemic, we actually had our individuals go out. So we have these rehabilitation programs that are community-based. And so an example is we have 2 day habs right by a Gateway Mall. And we usually have a partnership with the Gateway Mall Stop and Shop there. We'd have our individuals packing bags, pushing trolleys. Sorry, what do they call it in America? Shopping carts. Yeah, I'm Jamaican. We call it trolleys where I'm from. And I think we try so hard to not be insular, but I think it's partnerships. And we realize we can't just have our individuals. We can train them as much as we want in the office, in the spaces, and we have an immersion room where we're actually helping the individuals understand how to respond to stimuli outside. But I think there needs to be a wide, it could be some sort of like public education that's telling New Yorkers, here's a person who might respond differently to you in this moment. Here's how you can, and I think New Yorkers would be so open to this. I just don't know if there's any widespread public information campaign on how to interact with people with disabilities. And that makes it even harder for them to be included and accepted in work environments. I believe that's been our largest challenge.
If I could add to that, because we've definitely seen all those things. The first thing is the entitlements cliff. It's definitely a real issue. I think we can all agree to that people want to work, but they're afraid they're going to lose their Medicaid or their Social Security. And we work really hard to counsel them, but there's only a certain amount of hours. And there are people who want to work full time, but they're afraid they'll lose their health insurance, and that's really hard for them. The other thing, I think, for people, you specifically asked about people with psychiatric challenges, we're finding that people don't want to hire them because of their stigma. And if they self-disclose, and that's one of the huge things we have, when to self-disclose about what they might need, what accommodations they might need. Once they self-disclose, they may lose that job. And people, sometimes they don't even get past the interview if they share it on the interview process. So they're able to work. Some of them, as I mentioned, have master's degrees. Some of them have, like we have a person going through medical school right now. And yet he's not able to match for residency because of his anxiety disorder, PTSD, and depression. People don't want him working, but he has the ability to do that. And I think that stigma is still out there for people with psychiatric challenges.
The one thing that I'll add in sharing with both is that the stigma is so large and it's very difficult to overcome because you can't force people to understand what they don't know. So I do believe first and foremost is always the education piece. Everyone across New York, those who own businesses, those who are willing to hire, those who would like to hire, those who need to hire, need to better understand what mental health looks like. It is very diverse. It does not look the same on every person. At Goodwill, New York, New Jersey, we focus on employment, and I'm working in a clubhouse. So as a program director for a mental health clubhouse, our primary focus is transitional employment and supported employment. It's hard to get people out and into these jobs who are very capable. They're working in the clubhouse. Right. So we know that they can work out in the community. But when we go to employers and we do our spill and we show them the data and we talk about this person who's standing with us more than likely, it's very difficult for them to get past what they think mental health does by limiting someone, and it does not. Me coming into this program as a program director a year and 2 months ago, members trained me, and you're talking about 15-year members. We've been open since 1994. It is real. They understand better than we do, and we do side-by-side work in Clubhouse where required. They know what they're doing, whether it's administratively, whether they are physically in a kitchen cooking, whether they're cleaning, whether they do reception. You come and visit, they're buzzing you in, they're signing you in, they're answering the phone, they're transferring the calls. We're more than capable, but New York City need to know what this really looks like. And I think the last thing for me is transportation, is really making it easier for people to get around and get where they want to go.
And just building on that, what sectors are you seeing folks getting hired and retained?
Mostly for me with transitional and the supported employment retail. The retail industry is big and we need to diversify because more of our members want to do more than just retail, but it's hard to sell it, it's hard to get them in that door, but retail is real popular in clubhouses.
I would also add, we see a lot of food service. I think it's a lot of shift work where we're seeing people being hired because I want to say people with disabilities, they're the most loyal employees. They want to show up, they're so happy to have their job. And because they want part-time work due to their, the said cliff that we talked about before, those type of places where it's shift work part is really where the part-time work is easiest for them.
Same.
And in your experience, have members been recruited by city agencies, or are any of your members working with a city agency?
No, none of ours, but totally want to get in.
Same.
Yeah.
Same.
And you all knew about the 55A program and.
So actually, if I may, I hope I speak on behalf of all of us when I say a lot of the things that were discussed today have not been brought to the provider organizations. And I don't think I was aware of almost anything that was talked about in those 2 hours. So it was an amazing learning experience for me, so thank you. But I don't think there's a lot of outreach to the boots on the ground, that we're the ones providing those services and we're not getting that information.
And outside of just the employment piece, are you in touch with MOPD? Okay.
I think, yeah. I was in touch with the former commissioner, and I just reintroduced myself to Elena, who is the new chief of staff. So we're going to build a relationship there as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very much.
Okay, we will now move to remote testimony. Please wait for your name to be called to testify and select unmute when prompted. Clement So. Iman, one at a time. Okay.
You may begin.
Okay. Hi, my name is Clement So of the Metropolitan Asian Deaf Association. I'd like to hold on. Just some technical issues with the interpreter. Hold on. Okay, sorry about that. This is Clement So of the Metropolitan Asian Deaf Association. I'm the executive director and the co-chair of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing Association. We'd like to communicate support for our disability community as well. So right now I have written text that I will submit in writing, or testimony that I'll submit, but I wanted to talk specifically about LL30, access to legal, and in regards with access to disability rights. I wanted to speak about LL30, that the covered language, the top 10 lines that are included, we froze, that include Chinese, foreign, Russian, as well, different languages that are included, but ASL is not included. So deaf New Yorkers have a hard time having access to ASL in government agencies across the city. That's one of the biggest threats to their economic security and resources. The New York State already passed language access to include ASL. That's already passed at the state level. And now I think it's time to amend LL30 to include ASL before the problem gets worse and worse and worse. So I already spread the words throughout the deaf community, and everyone realizes that this is an important piece, that ASL content isn't there, ASL information isn't there in the government agency. On the websites, there's just a few very brief content that's in ASL. We need more content in ASL to support various resources. And also, for example, the Board of Elections has no ASL content on their website. So it's really frustrating in providing voter education to people, that the New York deaf community has a very low voter participation, just merely because the language isn't there. And lower voter participation means worser economic standards for deaf people. And to wrap all this up, I had spoken with MOPD Commissioner and the Office for Immigration Affairs to see if it's possible to amend.
Your time has expired. Thank you.
You can finish up.
And so, sorry about that. The interpreter got interrupted. Um, I just have interpreters ask him to repeat the last part because of the interruption. I spoke with Commissioner from MOPD and the Commissioner for Immigration Affairs and about on the same issues. I wanted to thank you for listening to my testimony, and I look forward to hearing more. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Iman Ramawi Doster.
You may begin.
Hi, thank you so much and good afternoon. I was planning on being there in person, but the spring flu apparently got me. My name is Iman Ramawi Doster, and I am a senior community organizer for the Disability Justice Program at New York Lawyers for the Public Interest, or NILPI. Thank you for the opportunity to present my testimony. Applying for and interviewing for a job is exciting, full of opportunities and possibilities. Unfortunately, that excitement is sometimes bittersweet for someone with a disability living in New York City. Disabled New Yorkers aren't just thinking about the job itself. We are also thinking about how we can get there. NILPI's Disability Justice Program works to reduce barriers for people with disabilities around our city, including by advocating for improved access to all modes of mass transit, along with more accessible streets, sidewalks, and entry of places of business. According to a study from that the Center for the Independence of the Disabled New York, or Sydney, did, the second most complained about topic for disabled New Yorkers is transportation. And one cannot get to a job and keep a job if they have unreliable transportation. Lack of reliable transportation is the second most cited reason after discrimination for New Yorkers' abysmal unemployment and underemployment statistics. I've used Accessorize since 2010 when my lupus caused severe neuropathy, which caused me to become paralyzed from the neck down. After 14 months of intense physical therapy, some of which I had to do on my own because I wasn't getting better fast enough for my insurance company or nursing home, I was able to walk again, but with limited mobility with my legs. I had to use leg braces. I now use a walker and prosthetics full time after a miscarriage. I sometimes use my wheelchair as well. 16 years later, as an above and below knee amputee, I have even more mobility struggles and a busier life. And on one hand, the Accessoride program and service, which I pay for and has greatly improved, it still has issues. There are so many issues with this. Sometimes you can't even tell how many. Issues that make having a busy life and fluctuating schedule harder to manage. Booking trips a day or two in advance often doesn't work for me, and others who use paratransit. Having only 40 rides a month with the MTA Pilot on-demand program makes it difficult, but I manage between traditional and on-demand. I make it work, but not without significant challenges. The trains and buses aren't even fully accessible, as the MTA claims. For example, even aside from the fact that only 30% of the subway stations are currently stair-free accessible, there remains other significant accessibility barriers, including excessive and dangerous gaps that the platforms and trains and system-wide have. Further, while buses are accessible, too many drivers are inadequately trained on how to secure passengers using wheelchairs. Despite those
Your time has expired. Thank you.
You can keep going.
Okay, thank you. Despite those persistent accessibility challenges on fixed route transportation, even with the 100% accessible train stations, there will always be a need for Accessoride. Therefore, it's incumbent on the city and the MTA to ensure that Accessoride functions optimally for the customers it serves. Luckily, I've worked someplace for 9 years that understands how difficult it is to get around the city with a physical disability, but not everyone with a disability has that luck. If we're going to talk about economic growth for disabled New Yorkers, not only should we be doing it intentionally and intersectionally, but we should be considering the discrimination and inaccessible work environments. And we should consider the importance of accessible transportation as a driver of employment for disabled people and disabled New Yorkers. And it's been incredibly difficult with my lupus as an above and below knee amputee, as someone who has chronic fatigue and chronic pain, to keep up with this. But I do it because it's important. And thank you so much for the opportunity to testify, and I'll submit my testimony. Thank you.
Thank you. Molly Sinak.
You may begin.
good afternoon. My name is Molly Senek. I am the Education and Employment Community Organizer for Center for Independence of the Disabled New York. We've already heard a lot today about the various statistics regarding unemployment for people with disabilities in New York City. However, I would also like to highlight something that came up during the last in-person panel, which is the fact that employees with a disability are almost twice as likely to only work part-time as opposed to people without disabilities. They're also less likely to work in higher paid managerial or professional positions than people without disabilities. And the American Community Survey reported that even when people with disabilities do work full-time, their median salary is more than $9,000 lower than the median salary of people without disabilities. People with disabilities seeking gainful employment face gaps in hiring, advancement, and wage parity. Last month, my organization hosted a two-part event exploring these gaps and the barriers faced by the disability community in New York City. And a huge thank you to Councilmember Hanif for attending that and giving her remarks. A full report on the takeaways from this discussion is going to be released in the next couple of weeks, but some of the main barriers that members of the community expressed experiencing with unemployment were structural issues with employment programs such as NYC at Work, 55A, et cetera, including overly complex application processes, inconsistent follow-through from case managers, long wait times for responses, and overall lack of results. There was also a lot of reporting about the lack of counseling on navigating the benefits cliff and continued stigmatization of having a disability in the workforce, with community members citing a lack of flexible roles, jobs being withheld when accommodations were requested, and the continued existence of a sub-minimum wage. Some of our recommendations are centered around the integration of mandatory benefits counseling, retirement planning into these employment programs, funding to sufficiently staff employment programs, and continued work with the New York City Council to address certain systemic barriers. However, this event really highlighted the importance of having an office whose primary purpose is to address this multitude of interconnected barriers, specifically impacting the disability community's access to gainful employment. And so, bearing that in mind, we are asking for a baseline investment of $10 million for the Mayor's Office of People with Disabilities in the FY 2027 budget. We also ask the Council to consider the role that intersectionality plays in establishing equitable economic opportunity. In 2024, the New York City Council released a report that reflected the compounding effects of intersectional racial and gender bias on wage parity. However, disability was left out. People with disabilities are more likely to be female, and they're staggeringly more likely to be people of color. I know that my time is running out, so I will just say the rest of my testimony is submitted in writing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll now go to Christopher Johnson.
You may begin.
Yeah, hello. My name is Christopher Leon Johnson. I wanted to speak on this right now, and I support this committee topic at hand when it comes to economic opportunities for people with disabilities. But the city has to really work on how they really treat people who are disabled. And the problem is that the city doesn't get a lot of money from the Office for Disabilities in the mayor's office. The thing is that the city has to really uplift the disabled community and make it not to where that it's taboo. The problem is that certain employers, the reason they don't want people with that disabled because it's hard to fire them. You know what I mean? Even if they do wrong, it's hard to fire a person that's disabled because unless there's like a replacement for that disabled person, they can get sued, especially people that are mentally disabled. There are people there are good people who have mental illnesses, and the problem is that there are people that are like this bad people that have mental illness. But the thing is that a person is certified mentally ill, it's really hard to fire a person that's really mentally ill. The city has to really come together and put their foot down and really treat people who do a bad job on the workforce who are disabled the same way they see a person that they call able-bodied on the workforce. I'll say this right now that going forward at 26, I know that you're the chair of the Disabled Disabilities Committee, Mrs. Hanif, but you need to really advocate more to the mayor's office to allocate money to this office of disabilities. That the thing that comes first, and the thing is that they need to open more opportunities when it comes to job trainings for people who are disabled. They need be more job training programs for people that are mentally disabled. This need to come in conjunction with the Office of Mental Health and the New York City Mayor's Office, including the State Office of Mental Health. So look, it's a lot that has to be done. This is a long travel fight with this, but I'll say this right now that going forward, next time you have a hearing, there should be the mental health committee there too. Um, when it comes to this topic at hand, people that are mentally ill, a certain place they're called disabled people, and at the same time, when it comes to economic opportunities, there has to be transparency when it comes to um, this issue right here. But like I said, it's all about allocating money. We have a budget. We're still in pre-budget cycle. I know the exec budget is still stalled. But
Your time has
that's
expired. Thank
all
you.
I gotta say. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. I had a question for Molly, if she's still there.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Molly, I wanted to know if you've had members of your organization be successful in retaining a job placement in a city agency?
So that is actually something that I am looking into as an advocate. Full disclosure, I do not work on the employment services side. So there would be other people within my organization who might have better access to that information. However, something that we're currently looking at is the overall success of 55A, B, and C programs. Because at the state level, you cannot sue the state for violating your rights under the ADA. So we are currently actually looking for people who received work through a 55B or C program and then faced difficulty in maintaining that position and had no legal recourse. So far, we have not come in contact with anyone. In terms of how successfully people have managed to succeed at city agencies, are you asking, like, I don't have data on this necessarily, but are you specifically asking for people who received their position through the 55A program or for people who did not necessarily receive their position through the 55A program?
Both are fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, I cannot say whether we have worked with anybody. I can get in touch with somebody at my organization who would know that. But I can say that because 55A doesn't allow for essentially promotions unless you then take the civil service exam, you are still kind of stuck in whatever position you get. And then for people without who got their city position without the 55A program, I have interacted with some people specifically who within their city position were having trouble because their accommodations were being denied, specifically with regards to remote work.
Thank you for sharing that. And do you know if your members are going to the Workforce One centers?
As far as I know, because we offer employment services, when people are coming to us for employment services, we are the ones who are connecting them.
Okay.
But we do do quite a bit of work with the mayor's office for people with disabilities.
All right. Thank you. Christopher Grief.
You may begin.
Okay, he's not here. Michelle Ann Blond-Munville.
You may begin.
All right. So thank you to everyone who has testified. If there's anyone present in the room or in the Zoom that hasn't had the opportunity to testify, please raise your hand. Seeing no one else, I would like to note that written testimony, which will be reviewed in full by committee staff, may be submitted to the record up to 72 hours after the close of this hearing by emailing it to testimony@council.nyc.gov. Thank you all for tuning in to today's hearing. Take care.